Good evening, everybody. If you would like to take your seats, we will go ahead and get started. I will call to order the May 7th, 2024 Gilbert Town Council meeting. The first item on our agenda this evening is an invocation by Pastor Richard Nungasser from the Bread of Life International. I need to have that corrected for the minutes, please, because it says Bread of Life, but it's Bread of Life, please. Richard, if you could please come down to the podium right in front of me. I just want to say something special about Richard because we met just over a year ago in February, March of last year. And then Richard asked myself and former council member Scott September to visit Poland because he predominantly does a lot of his work outreach in Poland, but his organization Bread of Life International started right here in Gilbert, and so it has a special place here in our town. But what he does is all over the world. They're helping people in 8 countries, and so many different cities in Poland. And it was the trip of a lifetime to be able to go there and represent the town of Gilbert and the state of Arizona and the United States of America at an event in Kalisz, Poland. And thank you for that. And thank you for being added to our rotation of pastors that come out and offer an invocation for us. I really appreciate it deep down in my heart. The couple of times that you have prayed over me, I've cried, so I will try not to tonight, Richard, but no promises. If you would push, I think it's the right button on there, there we go, that will light up. And you might need to pull it up a little closer to you since you're so tall. But thank you for joining us, Richard.
Thank you, Mayor Peterson, and thank you guys for the honor to be here with you tonight. I read a Bible verse today, and it brought me great encouragement and hope, and I hope it brings you the same as we pray tonight. It's from 1 Corinthians 13, and we know this a lot from weddings, but I think it's very encouraging for us. It says, "If I speak in the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understanding all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to move mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. If I give away all I have, and if I deliver up my body to be burned, but have not love, I gain nothing. Love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at the wrongdoings, but rejoices with truth. Love never ends. As for prophecies, they will pass away. As for tongues, they will cease. As for knowledge, it will pass away. But when the perfect comes, the partial will pass away. When I was a child, I spoke like a child. I thought like a child, and I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I gave up childish ways. For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I have been fully known. So now faith, hope, and love abide, these 3, but the greatest of these is love." Let's pray. Our Father, we honor you, and we thank you for life. Thank you that we can be gathered here together this evening. We thank you for the grace that you have bestowed on everyone here tonight. We pray for our leaders here today and ask for your wisdom and insight from above to guide them, to protect them as they lead us. We pray for our community and those that are hurting, the sick, and those that are in deep pain. We ask that you give them peace and give them strength. God, help love to abound here tonight in our meeting and in each of our hearts. We thank you for this town, and we thank you for our nation. Amen.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you again for joining our lineup of invocations. We appreciate you. Next, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'm missing who's going to present. That would be Councilmember Buckley. Too many pieces of paper.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excuse me. Next, I would like to ask our town clerk to please offer the roll call.
Mayor Bridget Peterson.
Here.
Vice Mayor Scott Anderson.
Here.
Councilmember Chuck Bongiovanni.
I'm here.
Councilmember Bobby Buckley.
Here.
Councilmember Young Kaprowski.
Here.
Councilmember Kathy Tilkey.
Here.
And Councilmember Jim Torgerson.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Thank you, Chevelle. Just as a reminder to please turn off or silence all cell phones and devices for our meeting as we get started this evening. Our first item on our agenda is a proclamation, and that would be a proclamation declaring the week of May 6th through 10th, 2024 as Economic Development Week. It will be presented by Councilmember Torgerson to Dan Henderson and the Office of Economic Development. Dan is the Director of Economic Development, and I see a few team members joining him. If they'd come down to the front of the chamber, please.
Give me this, it's clean to read. And I just hand that to him, right? Whereas Gilbert serves on the International Economic Development Council, the largest professional economic development organization dedicated to serving economic developers, and whereas Gilbert was the first economic development organization accredited recipient recognized by the IEDC of all economic development organizations within Arizona, and whereas the Gilbert Office of Economic Development promotes economic well-being and the quality of life for the community through their efforts focused on creating, retaining, and expanding jobs to facilitate growth, which enhances wealth and provides a stable tax base. And whereas the Gilbert Office of Economic Development has initiated a 3-year strategic plan to encourage investment, business retention, expansion, and growth while cultivating economic prosperity for all. And now, therefore, I, Jim Torgerson, on behalf of Mayor Bridget Peterson from the town of Gilbert, do hereby proclaim May 6th through 10th, 2024 as Economic Development Week, and thank the Office of Economic Development for their due diligence and efforts in fostering and supporting a successful community. Sir, thank you. And please, introduce.
Absolutely, thank you. Appreciate the recognition and certainly the support of you, Mayor, and all the members of council. Certainly the executive team and Patrick Banger as well. I'd like to introduce this amazing team and have them briefly introduce themselves and the role that they serve.
Hi, Jennifer Graves. I serve as the Deputy Director for the Office of Economic Development.
Hi, Sydney Bethel Price, Redevelopment Project Manager. Amanda Elliott, Redevelopment Program Manager.
Michelle Streeter, Marketing and Communications Project Manager.
Thank you. My name is Dan Henderson, and I serve as the Economic Development Director and have the pleasure and fortune of working for this wonderful team and serving this community. Thank you.
Just tell us more about your group. Take a moment to shine.
Take a moment to shine. Well, as many know, our role here is obviously to bring business and industry into the community. Through that, we oversee 3 lines of service, what we call economic development or our business development activities, as well as tourism and redevelopment. So a lot of the stuff going on in the downtown, coupled with all the other team members in Gilbert, we're delighted with how our downtown is developing. Certainly our tourism is young in its line of service, but nonetheless, with all the assets and amenities that this community has been supporting, we've been able to develop a rather robust tourism effort that's focused on bringing visitors into the community. And we couldn't do all of this without the support of certainly the community, certainly Mayor, members of the council, our executive team, Patrick, and certainly Mary Goodman, the assistant town manager that oversees all of our lines of service. So with that, thank you. Appreciate the recognition.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am.
Is it blowing it up bigger so we can see it? Great job, team. Thanks for all you do. Next, we'd like to recognize the municipal clerks for the Municipal Clerks Week. Would all the members of the Clerks Department please come and join me here at the front? Whereas the office of the municipal clerk is a vital part of local government that exists throughout the world and remains the oldest profession among public servants, and whereas the office of the municipal clerk serves as the official legal information center and professional link between the citizens, the local governing bodies, and agencies of government at other levels, and whereas municipal clerks dutifully remain neutral and impartial and render equal service to all, and whereas Gilbert's town clerk staff have completed autism certification that ensures successful interactions with Gilbert's community members, and whereas municipal clerks continually strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the office of the municipal clerk through participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and the annual meetings of their state, provincial, county, international professional organizations, and whereas it is appropriate that we recognize the accomplishments of Gilbert's town clerk office and their time and efforts. And now, therefore, I, Bridget Peterson, Mayor of the town of Gilbert, do hereby proclaim May 5th through May 11th, 2024 as Municipal Clerks Week in Gilbert, Arizona, and furthermore extend a wholehearted appreciation to our town clerk, Chevelle Herrera, Deputy Town Clerk Judy Martinez, and the rest of the amazing Gilbert Town Clerk team. Ready? Amy, Ashley, Denise, June, and Patty. Is that everybody? I got everybody? And to all municipal clerks for the vital services they perform and their continued dedication to the communities they serve. Congratulations and thank you for all you do. Would you introduce yourself and say what your role is, please, with the clerks?
Hi, I'm Judy Martinez. I'm the Deputy Town Clerk.
I am Chevelle Herrera. I am the town clerk.
June Wilson, I'm a town clerk specialist.
Denise Stroh, the administrative assistant.
Ashley Doring, town clerk specialist.
Amy Billarian, town clerk specialist.
And Patty focuses on public records requests, right? All of our records requests and records management. What their titles say does not even start to describe what these ladies do for us every single day or for this community, for the big things that they have to handle every day, down to making sure 2 cans of Diet Coke were in the freezer last night so they got chilled because we were going to be here for a few hours last evening. So it's all the big things that they accomplish and the little things that they get done for us every single day that makes me appreciate them more and more, and I can't say enough about them, and thank you so much. This is just such a little token of what we do. And if you haven't seen the post by AZ League of Cities and Towns, the first photo was of you guys in Halloween costumes. So, so if you haven't seen that, please go take a look. Let's get a photo. In the middle. Kirsten's gonna yell at me. You haven't seen it? Yeah, you're superheroes. You're superheroes. Let me hold this for you and I'll put this behind you. Maybe Chevelle should be holding it. Thank you. Thank you, Chevelle. Thank you. Thank you so much. Our next proclamation will be presented by Councilmember Kaprowski for National Public Works Week.
I'd like to welcome our esteemed Public Works team down to the front of the room. Hi, Eric.
She's not wrong.
So in recognition of National Public Works Week, whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are vital to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the residents of Gilbert, Arizona, and whereas the infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of our public works professionals, employees within all levels of government and the private sector, and who are responsible for the rebuilding, improvement, and protection of our nation's transportation sanitation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in the public's best interest for the residents, civic leaders, and children in our community to learn about and maintain an ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs. And whereas the year 2024 marks the 64th annual National Public Works Week sponsored by the American Public Works Association, and therefore I, Jan Kaprowski, on behalf of Bridget Peterson, Mayor of the town of Gilbert, Arizona, do hereby designate the week May 19th through 25th, 2024 as National Public Works Week. And we encourage all members of our organization and community to engage in activities, events, and ceremonies designed to pay tribute to our public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees, and to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protecting our national health, safety, and advancing quality of life for all. I have our Deputy Public Works Directors here with us and our CIP town engineer, so I'm going to pass it off to them. Tell us a little bit about what you do for the town of Gilbert.
Well, our Public Works team does something that touches your lives every single day. You drove here on the streets that our team built and maintained. You used the water that our team cleaned and purified and delivered to you, and we took it away when you were finished with it. And we take away your garbage when you are finished with that as well. So our team has a large impact on the community's way of life, and we're very grateful for all of them. I'll just take a second. I'm Eric Brown. I'm one of the Assistant Public Works Directors.
Susanna Struble, Town Engineer.
Casey Ambrose, one of the CIP supervisors.
Rick Hooker, Construction Project Manager, CIP.
Jason Snyder, CIP Project Manager.
Steve Notch, Senior Project Manager for Capital Improvement Projects.
Abby Taylor, CIP Communications Specialist.
Jerry Atwood, Senior Project Manager, CIP.
Jack Girak, one of the project supervisors.
My name is Yao Pham. I'm one of the other Assistant Public Works Director.
I'm Clint Emery. I'm in Traffic Engineering.
Ryan Blair, CAP Manager.
Well, thank you all for your hard work and dedication to the town of Gilbert and its residents. This is exactly what a municipality does for its residents. So thank you and happy National Public Works Week.
Thank you.
Thank you, and congratulations to everyone that was recognized this evening. We appreciate all you do for the town of Gilbert. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes that our residents just don't see every single day. Now, this evening is the first evening that we're running our agenda in a little bit different order. So the next item on our agenda is public hearing. Items will be heard at one public hearing, at which time anyone wishing to comment on public hearings may do so. I'm going to open the public hearing. Council, I'm assuming that you want to hear item number 6, and we have public comment for that. And number 11, or are we good on the rest of them? I haven't had anyone pull anything. I'm just pulling 6 because I know we have comment on that one. Is everything else good to go with one motion? Okay, then I'll go ahead and close the public hearing, looking for a motion on items 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve items 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11.
Thank you. I have a motion.
I'll second that, sorry.
Second that? Okay. I have a motion from Councilmember Tilkey, seconded by Councilmember Buckley. Please vote. Motion passes 7-0. Moving to item 6 on our agenda, that would be General Plan GP 22-16, zoning Z 22-16. And we will have a staff presentation on this item. Oh, did I say open the public hearing? Open the public hearing on that item. I forget if I did or not. And asking staff to come down to the staff podium, please. And please introduce yourself for the record. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, Council. Kristen Devine, Senior Planner with the town. The case I have before you tonight is going to be a request for a rezoning and a minor general plan amendment for the Lumberyard project. The site is located west of the Heritage District, northeast of Neely and Columber, and is bordered by industrial, multifamily, and public facility and institution zoning. The applicant is proposing to rezone the property to develop a multifamily community. The request before you tonight includes a minor general plan amendment from industrial to residential 25 to 50 dwelling units per acre and a rezoning from general industrial to multifamily high with a planned area development for a reduction in open space. The site is approximately 9.5 acres and is currently classified as industrial. The applicant is proposing a minor general plan amendment to change the site from industrial to residential 25 to 50 dwelling units per acre. And then with that, the applicant is also requesting that rezoning of the 9.5 acres from general industrial to multifamily high. The site as currently zoned is general industrial. For a bit of context, I've included our development standards for both general industrial and multifamily high on your screens. If the site were to remain general industrial, there are no restrictions on building height versus multifamily high, which has a maximum building height of 55 feet. Another notable difference between the two districts is that general industrial, there is no minimum landscaping percentage that needs to be met, whereas with multifamily high, the site is required to have a minimum of 40% common open space, along with 1 tree to be installed per 4 units, meaning a total of approximately 70 trees will be required to be installed with the proposed multifamily development. On the left side of the slide, I've also included a handful of uses that are permitted by right in the general industrial zoning district, including, but not limited to, parking structures, industrial hemp facilities, animal shelters, or crematoriums. The site is located within the long-range planning area within the Heritage District redevelopment plan. In that plan, the preferred land use at the Lumberyard site is multifamily, parks, retention, and transit. The proposed Lumberyard development falls in line with this land use and will be beneficial to the Heritage District by providing a variety and density of housing within and around the downtown area. Although the site is just outside of the Heritage District, the existing pedestrian bridge does provide a pedestrian-friendly entry point into the downtown area. The proposal has gone through a variety of stages before reaching this point. When the submission first came in, it was 27 acres. With 668 multifamily units proposed at a density of 50 dwelling units per acre. The development plan has since evolved and is currently proposing 285 units with a total of 30.8 dwelling units per acre. The units will be located within 3 buildings. 1 building will face Neely Street and will be 3 stories tall. Another building will be placed at the rear of the site adjacent to the district lofts community and will be 4 stories tall. The final and largest building will be placed central to the site and will also be 4 stories tall. That building will also surround a pool and amenity areas for the community. The development will be accessed from Neely and parking will be located throughout the site, with garages being located along the northern and southern property lines, providing an additional buffer from the adjacent industrial uses to the south. The applicant is proposing 444 parking spaces, which is the exact number required for the site. There will be approximately 71 parking garages, 214 covered parking spaces, and 159 uncovered parking spaces. Right, seen here are just some conceptual renderings of the project the applicant has shared with us. These renderings are not part of the review this evening and are only supplemental. With the rezoning, the applicant is proposing a planned area development with 1 deviation. As previously mentioned, the required open space landscaping on site is 40%. The requested deviation is for a reduction in that open space from 40% to 35%. Staff is generally supportive of the deviation request, as was Planning Commission. And since this project is located within 1,000 feet of the Heritage District, I brought it to both Redevelopment Commission and Planning Commission study sessions. The Redevelopment Commission study session was held on December 20th, 2023. Some of the feedback provided by the commission was that they appreciated the 3-story building being street side instead of the 4-story building. At the time of the study sessions, the site was underparked. The Redevelopment Commission had significant concerns with that and stated that the parking needed to be met on site. The commission had also suggested that the applicant look into possibly utilizing rooftop amenities to make up some of the open space deficit. The study session for Planning Commission was held on January 3rd, 2024. Feedback from that session was similar to that of the Redevelopment Commission. There were significant concerns with the site being underparked, and it was stated that parking must be met on site. The commission was also open to the idea of the rooftop amenities for open space, but was overall supportive of the reduction in open space as long as the parking could be met on site. At the April 3rd Planning Commission public hearing, the commission was generally supportive of the project, feeling it was in line with the long-term vision of the Heritage District area. They recommended approval of the project with a 6-to-1 vote. 5 neighborhood meetings have been held on this project. Questions and concerns from the public regarding the project have included density, proximity to the adjacent industrial lots, parking, and traffic concerns. Staff has received 2 opposition emails from the public at the start of the project when the proposal was 27 acres. And we have also had multiple conversations with the applicant, who brought concerns forward on behalf of the neighboring community of Neely Ranch to the southwest of the proposed site. The concerns from that community include traffic impacts, parking, and the use of Aviary Way by non-residents. The community brought forward some suggestions to the applicant regarding the possibility of closing off Aviary Way. The applicant then brought these concerns to us, and we discussed the options of a dead end, a cul-de-sac, a pork chop, or even gating Aviary Way. On February 15th, 2024, a meeting was held between the applicant, town staff, and representatives of the Neely Ranch HOA. During the meeting, we discussed the opportunity to close off Aviary Way, but ultimately town staff had determined that the dead end, cul-de-sac, pork chop, and gate options were not feasible. The primary reason for this decision is that there's not enough space to accommodate a cul-de-sac on Aviary Way while meeting current standards. Additionally, options would significantly impact emergency response times to that area, which is a concern for the town. Slowing mechanisms were also discussed, but with speed humps currently already existing along Aviary Way, the addition of further slowing mechanisms would have a negative impact on emergency response times, and staff is not generally supportive of them due to public safety concerns. Neely Street connecting over the railroad tracks has also been brought up to staff several times. The railroad has a policy not to allow additional at-grade crossings without the removal of 3 existing at-grade crossings. It is within the town's long-term plan to connect Neely across the tracks with the Vaughn ventilator, but it will not happen anytime soon. I would also like to note that at the Planning Commission continuance hearing on March 12th, in March, 12 comment cards were received in opposition to the project, with many of those community members also choosing to speak out in opposition at the hearing. At the April 3rd public hearing, we received 3 comment cards in opposition to the project. Since that April 3rd public hearing, we've had additional conversations with representatives of the Neely Ranch HOA to try to come up with a solution to the concerns. All right, and with that, staff does recommend approval of the general plan amendment and rezoning subject to the conditions found in the staff report, and I am available for any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Kristen at this time? Councilmember Tilkey?
Thank you, Mayor. I believe there was another stipulation that's coming forward tonight. Will that be coming from the applicant, or how are we going to address that?
I actually have the stipulation here. Do you have a copy of it too, Kristen?
I do.
Okay. Would you mind sharing that, and then we'll hear from the applicant as well? Thank you.
Absolutely. So the additional stipulation that staff has come up with the developer was that 1 year after the final certificate of occupancy is issued, the developer shall conduct a 3 consecutive business day traffic count along Aviary Way to determine actual daily trips. If the average daily trips for the 3-day period exceeds 540 daily trips, the developer shall work with the town of Gilbert to identify and implement additional traffic calming measures or other staff-approved mitigation efforts. The developer shall be financially responsible for a maximum financial contribution not to exceed $50,000.
Thank you. Councilmember Bongiovanni?
Thank you, Mayor. Can you go back to your first slide where you showed heights?
Councilmember Bongiovanni, the comparison?
Yeah. Okay, so there's no height restriction whatsoever if someone came in, bought the property, and kept it zoning the same way, correct?
That is correct.
And if they kept it zoned the same way with no height restriction, chances of them coming in front of us is pretty nil, correct?
So Mayor, Councilmember Bongiovanni, it would depend on the modifications that they make to the site. If they are adding additional buildings and such, it would come to Planning Commission, but it would not come to you. That's correct.
Right, okay, thank you.
Councilmember Krabrowski.
I just had a comment on the stipulation that you mentioned. I think you mentioned 3 consecutive business days along Aviary Way, and I would just suggest modification to 3 consecutive weekdays while school is in session.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions at this time for staff? You'll have another opportunity. Vice Mayor.
Kristen, isn't a cannabis dispensary also allowed in industrial?
Mayor, Vice Mayor Anderson, you are asking me questions that I don't know off the top of my head.
Well, the one that we have in town is in an industrial zone.
The medical the marijuana facility that we have located in town
Is
at
in light
McQueen and Elliott
industrial.
is in light industrial.
Yes.
Light industrial.
If it's allowed in light industrial, it's likely allowed in general industrial, but I would have to look it up.
Thank you.
Any other questions at this time? Thank you so much for your presentation. I'll now ask the applicant to please give their presentation. Mr. Baugh? Clicker or something, Adam? Oh. And I think it's the button on the, I don't know if it's the button on the left or the right to turn your microphone on, Adam. I'm sorry. It's the right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Which is always weird because red means stop, but here it's go. I
Not
guess.
here, it's go.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Adam Baugh, on behalf of the applicant, Keeley Properties. We're grateful to be here. I think the timeline showed first neighbor meeting started in December of 2022. So it does take a long time to get to this point, unusually long for this one, but I think intentionally at a pace that recognizes the concerns that we are hearing and trying to adjust things as needed. So I think my presentation will be brief, but I do want to address a few things that are important we're sharing. It's 9.5 acres today, but when we started this project, it looked more like this. And the reason why it's called a lumberyard is because it has been operating historically as a lumberyard property. And, you know, when you think through like the history of William Bobby Gilbert, you know, giving this land to the Eastern Railway to create this railway track that comes to the area, which brought in a lumberyard because of its proximity to the rail line, you can understand why at one point General Industrial made a lot of sense here. You didn't really have the type of downtown that you have today. You didn't have the neighborhoods around it. And so being its proximity to the rail line, it made sense to have a lumberyard property where you could ship your product in and out. But as residential has encroached here, as the town environment has thrived and become a hub, really, of Gilbert and the gem of this area, the town had to go back and look at their plans and recognize that maybe general industrial really isn't the best long-term use of the site, even though it was probably the best use when it first came in. And so as developers come and look at the town, they look at a few things. But more particularly, they look at the policy documents like the general plan and area plans. And in this case, the Heritage District Redevelopment Plan sets forth an expectation that if it weren't us, somebody else would come here and look at this as a guide for them on what they should propose for this property. Whereas we originally started with more than 800 units across the entirety of the site, and then understanding this plan better, we came up with a proposal that's been modified from where we started to where we are today that reflects precisely what this plan calls for. Multifamily on the bottom part, and an opportunity for the town to satisfy its needs with the public retention open space area on the north part. And so when you look at this building today, you can appreciate why it looks like this because it predated much of the development that are around there, but soon can have an opportunity to look a little bit more appropriate for this area. And so as we come back to this plan, as we've scaled it down from what used to be 800 units to 285 units, and making sure that we heard that feedback We continue to do a lot of things. I think one of the most important things was the number of trips in this area. Number 2, the number of units we're proposing. Number 3, the heights that were being considered. And number 4, the parking. And so to address those things, we redesigned our plan and scaled it down significantly to 285 units. We scaled down the heights along Neely Street to 3 stories and put the taller heights behind it. We shed and lost more units as we realized every unit you have, you have to provide the parking for the unit and the guest parking for that unit. And recognizing that the greater priority was to make sure that we provided the parking on site and didn't have to park off site to meet our needs, is why we ended up losing more units and working through the types of landscaping deviations that we have today. The PAD deviation from 40 to 35% really makes sense when you consider that we're locating next to a huge retention area, park space in the future. So while we might have a 5% deviation, you can consider the variety of open space that will be to the north of us. But as we start to really design this plan, recognizing that Neely Street today, while we wish there could be a more rapid solution to the railroad crossing, we recognize that there will be a solution in the future. It will probably take a little bit of feat of engineering. We've seen it one time in the town with Greenfield Road going under the train tracks. And maybe that might be an opportunity here to exist. But I know for certain that there will be a solution here in play. And so the town has to plan for the long term. And they recognize in the long term, this type of use, which is why you have it here on this plan, is a complement to your heritage district. And it will work very well with the future connection of Neely Road as it will extend further to the north. But as we go forward with this version of the plan today, what we've done is make sure that our proposal is a reduction in size, reduction in units, reduction in heights, and a significant reduction in trips. And so when I think through all the different industrial uses that can happen on this property, I think I was going too far ahead of myself, this clearly has a significantly less impact than the intensity of uses that can come with a general industrial. Just last month, I got approval for a 120-foot tall general heavy industrial building in the town of Queen Creek. Why would you need 120 feet? Because advanced manufacturing has silos and materials, and you don't know precisely where they go, so you zone the entire property for the one building that will have it. And so when I think through unlimited heights that can otherwise occur in the general industrial district, and versus what we can propose here, can create greater compatibility with this plan. Now, I think the greatest concern I've heard from the community, from the HOA, which, by the way, have been very pleasant. I couldn't address all concerns, and I couldn't change the nature of the use that I was proposing, but I have respected the way that they've communicated and I guess to some degree worked with us. I wasn't able to deliver what they wanted, which was cutting off Aviary Way. But one of the reasons why I couldn't do that is because we had to make sure we understood what is the volume of traffic. There's 2 streets. Neely Street is a collector street. It's designed to carry 8,400 trips. Aviary Way is a local residential street. It's designed to carry a different number of trips. So when we counted the trips on Neely Street, we are significantly less than the way it's designed for. And the reason why it's designed so big is because it knows at some point it will go over the train tracks or under the train tracks. But Neely Street has enough capacity to serve our project. On Aviary Way, we had to end up doing a traffic study. Excuse me, not a traffic study, traffic counts. So we counted the trips for a 24-hour period. When you put down the strip and it counts them, it tells you which way they're going directionally, east or west, what time of day they're coming, and what the speed and velocity of those trips are. And that counter for a 24-hour period only picked up 240 trips, which is about less than 10% of the volume that road is designed for. And so when we started to explore what is the real impact happening on Aviary Way versus the perception, we wanted to make sure we could provide some solutions. So we proposed things like the speed humps, pork chops, limiting access, one way only. But I think at the end of the day, it was hard for, I believe, the town's transportation department to justify making changes to a roadway when it had less than 10% of the volume that it was designed for. So unfortunately, I don't get to call the shots or make the decisions regarding those types of improvements. But we did examine it, and I think at the request and desire of the neighbors, because we certainly wanted to try to find a solution too. And I think to their credit, they stepped up. They proposed an idea that maybe their HOA could dedicate some land to fulfill the radius bulb of a cul-de-sac, but at the end of the day, there wasn't sufficient room really to satisfy what the town's engineering standards require. So what we know is this. The roadway traffic that's occurring on Aviary Way is 9% of what that roadway is designed for. So I don't know if we're designing for a perception, but I know we're not designing for what the reality is occurring there today. What I do know is this. When the town adopts these plans and policies, they are setting forth an expectation of what they want the community and development to bring. And we comply precisely with that component of the multifamily and the town's opportunity for the open space to the north. But through this process, our plans have been revised, our densities come down, we've matched the Heritage District, we've brought in lower heights along the streetscape, and I think with the stipulation that I just saw today, goes a long way. And I think the reason why that number is measured at 540, because if we have about 9% now, 20% of that roadway would equal about 540 trips. And so if for some reason the trips along Aviary Way were to reach up to 20% of the capacity of that road, then the developer will have an obligation to kick in to help address that matter. I don't know if we'll be able to actually measure if the 540 trips or 20% are attributed to us. At some point, if you develop that park or retention area, you may find that your facilities could create some of those trips. But I don't want to assign who's responsible for what. I think our commitment is, if it rises to that level, we'll help provide that solution. And so for that reason, I appreciate what Kristen said. I think I'll probably wrap up my presentation, but that's how we came to the language that's there today to perhaps address if that potential concern does arise in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Baugh. Would you be open to the modification that Councilmember Kaprowski made a few minutes ago?
Yes, it makes perfect sense.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Buckley, did you have questions for Mr. Baugh?
I do. Thank you for the presentation. I appreciate that. I guess my first question is, and it's probably pretty obvious, is why would you not have built single-family homes there? Because that fits with the neighborhood.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. In fact, our very first proposal had some single-family homes, some townhomes, and 2 different apartment projects. When we had 28 acres to work with, I think we could pencil the cost of the yield of what single-family would be, because we were having 2 multifamily projects to kind of leverage those costs out. But now that we're down to just 9 acres, in order for the project to pencil, it's going to have to be through this manner.
Well, I knew the pencil had something to do with it in there, but I have another question on, and I don't, she went pretty fast the other, for the other presentation, so I didn't quite catch if she mentioned, so the rooftop open space that you were talking about, is that in the plan, or was that just talking?
It was just talking. I think there was a concern that maybe we should be providing some type of amenity to offset it, but it was in a vacuum without considering that there's a large open space retention area, potential park space to the north.
Because I would have a big problem with that thing,
Yeah.
simply because, there's a lot of residential homes there.
Looking out and privacy-wise?
Yeah, and have people on a rooftop looking, in their backyard. I'm trying to appease the neighbor and the mayor and talk into the mic. So I kind of definitely would have had a big issue with that. I do still have some issues. I think I'm very outnumbered here, but I think because I lived in that area, I lived on the other side of Cooper for 18 years. And, there's multi-million-dollar homes there. And a project like this is not going to, in my opinion, is not going to help the property values.
Yeah.
And especially being able to see what's there. So I have an issue with that. It's a very, very congested area.
Yeah.
And we all know that. And it's extremely congested now. So if we add 282 apartments with probably, I think the average is 2.8, or is it 1.8 per apartment per people? So if we have 82 that you mentioned, we can at least minimum double that, because a lot of people are living, together, and 2 or 3 people in an apartment. So people-wise and vehicle-wise, it's going to be a lot. But for that reason, and the additional drain on services and everything, I'm having an issue supporting.
I understand. Yeah.
But thank you very much.
Councilmember Bongiovanni?
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for the presentation, Adam. You missed my slide, but that's okay. Was there?
Hold on.
Oh, there you are.
There
Okay.
I go.
Okay.
I was ready for this one.
Okay, good. I got it. Any concerns about the apartments that may be looking out and over the industrial across the street?
To the south?
Yeah. I mean, would those be difficult to rent, do you think?
I think maybe a question is will there be some type of rent offset for the units that are on the south end there? Yeah, I mean, I think all apartment projects have different units of different types because one might be at ground level next to next to the open space and pool area. You're going to charge a premium rent, and the other one might be on the fourth floor where you might charge a lesser rent. But I think the developer and his own marketing plan will determine how or if they need to adjust pricing per different units, where it may be.
Is there any thought of pricing at this point?
No, there's not.
I mean, you penciled it out. There has to be something involved in that, correct?
I mean, it's probably going to take us 2 years to build. I don't know what the rents are going to look like in 2 years, but I guess, Mark, I'm certain you have an idea of what it'll be. I mean, do you care?
On average, about $250 a foot. So this is a luxury product.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have any questions for Mr. Baugh at this time? Questions or comments for Mr. Baugh? Councilmember Tilke?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Baugh. Do you have a site plan? Can you, just to show what's surrounding it? Because I don't think this property's as close to the residential as maybe some were thinking. You have to go down the street just a ways, but that doesn't mean that those residents aren't important. I just wanted to point out that it's not right next door to the residential. When I met with representatives of the HOA, it was my understanding that the apartments were more palatable than a general commercial or general industrial project there. And that really wasn't the concern. The concern really was the traffic and what could happen to their neighborhood more so than having apartments there. And I, if I remember correctly, they were very pleased that we reduced that number significantly. I appreciate that when we reached out to you as representing the developer with the HOA's concerns and understanding that we couldn't do anything today as part of this project, but understanding that, you know, we like to make decisions based on data, and the data we have today didn't really justify making those major changes because it might happen. Instead, you were able to step up and say, let's take a look at this a year from now, and if we need to make some changes, we'll do that with up to $50,000. And I really appreciated that. This is an unusual request. I think this is an unusual property as far as how they get in and out. A little different than what we've seen in other communities, but it definitely wasn't something you had to agree to. And I just want you to know that I appreciate that because you heard the neighbors, you've made so many accommodations for both the town and the neighbors for this project. So I just wanted to mention thank you for that. I'm hoping that once we hear from the neighbors that they will feel that they were heard and that we have done what we can to accommodate their concerns. Thank you.
And Councilmember Tilke, for what it's worth, one of the reasons why we put the benchmark at a year after CBO was to make sure it's fully leased so we can understand its full impact and measure at that point, because at that point it'd be its max capacity and we could have more reliable data. And so that fund could hopefully address things, whether it be speed bumps, chicanes, speed tables, signage, one-way only. There's a lot of tools that the town has, and they can elect what's the right method to address it with that fund that we set aside.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Adam at this time? Adam, I want to say thank you. This has been a long discussion, and especially because the town of Gilbert needed land in that area, so we were able to work with you to really reduce your project and be able to take on the land that's necessary for water retention down there in the Heritage District for the town of Gilbert. With the changes that Kristen mentioned with Vaughan Ave connecting out to Neely, it's going to take up some of the water retention space that we already have in the Heritage District, so we were looking for other space. So this really has been an advantage to the community and to the town of Gilbert to be able to work with you on that, and we appreciate that. And at the same time, it did exactly what the neighbors were asking for, which was reduce the number of multifamily that will be built there. It creates a huge open space area that will be able to be used by the tenants in that area, and including the residents of Neely Ranch. They'll be able to go over and run their dogs in that space if they want to, as far as I can see, because I remember the days when Friends for Life was over on Vaughan Ave, and I brought my dog over and we ran them in the current water retention area that's there west of the university building. So I can see all those things in the future, and we appreciate that. And you have, you're very much more optimistic with getting Neely to connect at some point in time, either under the road or over, because we know the railroad can be very difficult to deal with. And so having the pedestrian connection there is a great advantage to those residents in the future. And I don't know that I've seen a stipulation like this that you have offered, with waiting for a year after C of O to come back in and perform a trip count, a daily trip count, and with the developer setting aside a financial obligation of $50,000. In all my years, I can't remember a stipulation like this. I've seen hundreds of cases, but this is an amazing offer from the developer, in my opinion, so I appreciate that, and thanks for all the work that you've done on this. I know it has been a long time coming, but I think it's going to be a much better project because of that. Thank you for all that, and I don't know if you want to comment back. It's really, that was all my general comments, so.
No, appreciate it.
Thanks, Adam. We'll go ahead and bring up the public that wishes to speak. Each person will get 3 minutes. I'll call you up to this middle podium. We'll have, I'll do my best to pronounce everyone's last name. Some I might spell just so that I don't honestly just butcher them. Rachel Zarell will be first. Next will be Michael France. If you'd like to be on deck, please. You'll get 3 minutes at the podium. Thank you.
Do I push any buttons? Oh, no, I don't. Hi, my name is Rachel. I'm a resident of Neely Ranch Homestead. I'm also on the board. Thank you guys for allowing us here, and I wanted to thank the developer for coming and giving us an updated information. There was a lot of new information presented tonight, which was great. I'm thankful for that. I guess what I wanted to say is I wanted to ask the council to consider the zoning of multifamily lower density, perhaps mid-density, instead of the high density. Because although these plans look great and they have a lower number, if you're zoning it at high density, they could change. And who knows, maybe they'll have it doubled, tripled. So we wanted to make sure that we could try to keep the density as low as possible. So we just ask you to consider that. And I also would just like to say I appreciate that stipulation. Maybe we could add some more details to that stipulation to make it more concrete. It looks great as a starting point, but I would love to see more planning around it and an analysis around it to make sure that we truly do get to do that analysis after the fact and have that chance to stop the traffic. I live on Aviary Way in the center part, and we do have a lot of cross traffic already from commercial vehicles, and we have a lot over the years. It's dwindled because we've been calling the commercial companies and asking them not to drive down our street, which has been very helpful, but we cannot do that with an apartment complex. So that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. Michael France, and next will be Ryan Hookham.
Hi, my name is Michael France. I also live in Neely Ranch Homestead. I am opposed to the apartments regarding the cul-de-sac that was rejected by the city at a meeting hosted by Councilwoman Tilke. A proposal was made in that meeting that didn't violate any space requirements with the modification of Aviary and Cooper to be a cul-de-sac. It eliminated the concern about emergency access. Emergency vehicles could access Springfield, Summerfield to Aviary. It resolves the issue of the primary concern of our neighborhood, which is the amount of traffic moving through our community. It was rejected from the traffic department because it will modify the flow of the community. They were concerned about the additional load on the Cooper and Elliott intersection. It is clearly the city's anticipation that Aviary is used as a through street to access Cooper Road. Again, we've laid out a proposal. The original one was to put it on Neely and Aviary. We've come up with one to put it on Cooper and Aviary to accomplish the same goal. It doesn't restrict any of the emergency service vehicles, but the city absolutely rejected it because it's going to impact the flow. The city already knows where the flow is going to be. You saw the map up there that was all highlighted. It's a concern to everybody. It's the #1 concern. Everybody's talking about it. We can't get the city to move to enable the developer to make that happen. Please work with your team. Let's figure out how to close off either the east end or the west end of Aviary so that there is not a desirable flow of traffic, and keep the traffic on Neely that's designed to handle that flow. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mike O'Brien. Hookham next, and then Will Rowell.
Hello, Mayor and Council members. My name is Brian Holcomb, and I reside in Neely Ranch. First off, many of us local residents are wondering how the planning for this development got this far. The town is providing concessions when it should be the developers that should be adhering to all town zoning codes, guidelines, and concerns of the existing community in order to build in Gilbert. I am here to urge you to vote no on this development. There are numerous reasons to reduce the density or find another use for this location. It is my understanding that when the general plan was issued, the intent was to have full access across the railroad tracks, allowing traffic to flow north to an arterial. Since that will no longer be an option for many years or possibly ever, it will leave this development with a single point of access for emergency vehicles. I do not recall ever seeing a multifamily complex without a minimum of 2 points of access to collectors or arterials for emergency services. Also, with a single point of access, traffic needing to go north, possibly half the traffic will cut through the subdivision to gain access to Cooper Road. This could be hundreds, if not thousands of cars skipping the lights at Neely and Elliott and Cooper and Elliott and going through their neighborhood. This is already the case on a smaller scale for the Lumberyard, where the HOA has tried to mitigate this issue with speed bumps. In closing, I don't feel this is a fitting location and hope the council will reduce or change the proposed development density or use. There are places better suited in Gilbert for their proposed high-density complex. Thank you.
Thank you. Will Rowell, and then Keith Crandall, please.
Good evening. Thank you for hearing my voices or my voice. My wife and I actually live in Artemina, about a mile from this proposed development, but there are a lot of concerns that I think people have expressed that need to be listened to a little bit more closely. In terms of current uses for industrial, my sarcastic first thought is that maybe the town needs to think a little bit more outside the box and combine a few different uses like a pot farm, animal shelter, crematorium mix, but that's not really a serious suggestion. I hear a lot of numbers. I hear 800 units originally, then 200, 440 parking spaces. Mr. Baum speaks very eloquently. He was kind enough to take some time to explain his vision or his client's vision for this site. I think with regards to all of these numbers, and I'm not going to beat a dead horse when it comes to why multifamily housing, why more high-density rental housing isn't what people are looking for in Gilbert. I think as a nearly 20-year resident, we moved to this town, not this city, but this town, because the low density, the owner involvement, I guess, the owner investment in properties that they live in leads to a good community. I guess what with all these numbers, and again, I'm not an eloquent speaker, but the number that I'd really like to look at is not these 800 or 200 units, not this $50,000 proposal, which is almost nothing. I mean, that's almost insulting, such a small amount of money, to a developer, that is. I think the number that I think is important is maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. That's potentially the size of a typical family in Gilbert. That's how many people might be hit by a car or a truck or something else coming down that road. I think that it's very easy for people who don't live in this neighborhood, like I believe everybody up here on the stage, like myself, to think, well, it's just a development, it's good commerce, it's this or that. But if you're somebody who's used to walking your dog or taking your kids for a walk and a vehicle comes by, I mean, do you just chalk that up as the cost of development? Is that the cost of progress in this town? And I don't think that's a good thing. And I hope that good sense will prevail and that this land will not be rezoned. Additionally, Councilman Kaprowski, I'd like to apologize for my incivility last time we met. That was uncalled for on my part, and I could have been more courteous. So thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you. Folks, we don't accept applause during the public hearing portion of the meeting, please. We want everyone to feel free to speak their mind and to feel free to speak one way or the other, and applause can make people feel uncomfortable. So I'm asking you please not to applaud. Mr. Crandall, Keith Crandall, next, and then Greg Jones.
My name is Keith Crandall. One correction on the neighborhood meetings. I was there at the September 26th meeting, but I couldn't stay for the whole meeting. But I told everybody there that this is a really, really bad idea. My wife had just been put on hospice, and I couldn't stay for the whole meeting. Anyway, so I own the industrial lot right on the corner of Neely and Columber. My suggestion is this whole apartment complex is a really, really bad idea. Gilbert is in desperate need of industrial land. I get calls all the time, people wanting to buy my industrial lot, or if I know of anybody who has a similar lot, to put apartments on that, it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. It needs to be, Gilbert needs outdoor storage, they need RV storage, they need small storage lots for contractors. The last thing Gilbert needs is another apartment complex. People in Gilbert need a place to work. The contractors, the small businesses need a place to work. Really, I think the town of Gilbert would make more money off of a developer coming in and putting in small industrial lots or industrial spaces than Gilbert would make off of the apartment buildings. The biggest problem I see with it, like this morning, I even had a broker call me and wanted to buy my land because there's such a shortage. The problem I have is if you put apartment buildings next to my land, my property value is gonna just decrease. And I can't imagine all the homeowner associations in the area, their property values going up. It's going to go down. And can you imagine all of the apartment buildings next to an industrial area where there's so much noise and early morning trucks starting up and stuff like that. So I think this was a really, really bad idea to put apartments right next to an industrial area. If the thing was reversed and you're putting industrial area next to an apartment building, I don't think that would work at all. Anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Greg Jones and then Nick Thomas, please.
Good evening. My wife and I bought a home and watched it be built in the Neely Ranch subdivision in 1999. And we've lived on Aviary Way the entire time. And I just want you to realize that there are residencies on both sides of Aviary Way. And the traffic that will come off of Cooper, that's going to cause a traffic jam at work time, rush hour, backing up Cooper to get onto Aviary. Our developer quoted some statistics like only 9% of Aviary Way is used to capacity. Capacity for what? It's a residential street. It's not designed to be a freeway or a thoroughfare up to an apartment complex. 9%, he said, of capacity. That must have been taken at 2 o'clock in the morning, that survey, because we have people go through there at rush hour time, going to work, coming home from work, that just stream up and down the street. And adding this other would just be a terrible thing. One of the things, when we purchased our home, Kaufman and Broad was the developer of the homes, and on the plan it had a cul-de-sac at the end of Aviary Way. But that didn't come to fruition, and so they thought they could placate us by putting in 2 speed bumps, but they're not very high, and people just ignore them now going up and down the street. I worry also about the park. Now, the mayor mentioned that people from our community, Neely Ranch, can go over and walk our dogs over there. I think it'll be just the reverse. There are no parks around. They will come, and the residents there, and they will utilize the park in the Neely Ranch subdivision. Now, we don't mind sharing, but just so you know, we as residents pay a pretty hefty HOA fee, and we pay for the maintenance on that park. And that would be a concern of mine as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Nick Thomas and then Carrie Lewis, please.
Hello, my name is Nick Thomas, and I live on Aviary Way. I moved to Gilbert almost 9 years ago with my family. We drove through the Heritage District and were taken back with how much it reminded us of our small town in Ohio and the life, and immediately knew that this is where we wanted to settle down, in the town of Gilbert. We first moved to the townhouses just north of the Heritage District, and we enjoyed visiting the area multiple times a week. As more new, unsuitable businesses were added, it began getting louder and more crowded in the area. Vehicles racing through the parking structure, live music at some of the restaurants until our early hours of the morning. We moved to where we are now on Aviary Way because the neighborhood still provided the quietness we were looking for, but still close proximity to the district if we chose to visit. In those 9 years, we've watched so many open spaces of land eaten up by the town of Gilbert and developers to add more and more people, businesses, bars, restaurants, and apartments, which has completely changed the small town, family-friendly appeal of the area. Our frequency of visiting the Heritage District has slimmed down to perhaps once a month now. Now, if you are looking to encroach on us again by adding high-density apartments to our quiet corner, not only will that bring more people, vehicles, and noise, but will change yet again the atmosphere that we moved to this community for. We enjoy taking walks through our neighborhood and the surrounding areas, seeing the wildlife from the preserve waddle its way into our yards, and listening to the coyotes when they feel they need to get a bit chipper in the mornings and the evenings. Adding the high-density apartments will not only be an eyesore to our beautiful view of the mountains that we have from our area and Arizona's landscape, but will add all the things we've been trying to get away from. We already have more than enough people speeding through our community to get from point A to point B. The speed humps on Aviary Way do not deter drivers. You can count on multiple cars speeding over those humps without slowing down every single day. What will it take? Will it take someone being seriously injured or killed for the developers and the county to comprehend our concerns about the traffic that will go through our neighborhood? It's only a matter of time before this is going to happen. It is a neighborhood road designed for neighborhood traffic and travel, and it is not a road that is designed, and it's not an area designed to be a through road for traffic to travel through. I wonder if this is something that you would support directly adjacent to where you live or in your neighborhood, and would you not have any concerns about your quality of life or safety for you or your family if this happened? I'm sure you've heard this from my neighbors in previous meetings, but it seems like the concerns are falling on deaf ears because the town council seems more concerned with making money and letting development happen than the actual citizens' happiness of those who are already there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Carrie Lewis, and then Jacqueline Hurd.
My name is Carrie Lewis. I live on the southeast corner of Neely and Elliott for almost 30 years now. When we first moved in, there were numerous accidents at Neely and Elliott. They put in a street light. It's reduced that greatly, but it has not stopped it. Neely is 2 lanes, one north, one south. How do you expect that one road to handle all the new traffic? I am very disappointed with the traffic engineering for not putting their foot down on this. I am disappointed in the economic development who could not find an industrial user who needs that railroad spur to come in and do something with that property that isn't 80 stories tall. You guys seem to think that just because there is no height limitation on it, that somebody's going to come in and do something. It wouldn't be more than 4 stories, I'm sure. There are incentives for bringing in businesses that are green, that either supply green businesses, solar industry. I just don't understand why apartment complexes have to go in there. It's industrial now. It should remain industrial, but I don't think you're going to do that. So what are you going to do with Neely Road? It's not enough. One road is not enough. Aviary Way, you cannot have 2 cars driving past each other on Aviary Way as it is now because the residents have to park on the street. They have more cars than their garages and driveways can handle. There's cars parked on both sides of Aviary Way. You cannot have 2 vehicles driving past each other on Aviary Way. It's not safe. It's not the town of Gilbert. Thank you.
Jacqueline Hurd, and then Stephen Hurd, please.
Hi, my name is Jacqueline Hurd, and I have lived in Neely Ranch for 14 years now. I started my family there, and what drew me there was the tree-lined streets and the quietness of the neighborhood. And I am on the farthest aviary that's closest to where the apartments would be. If I walked out of my front door, it would take me less than 2 minutes to get to where the apartments is. I'm probably 6 or 7 houses down. And I have 3 young boys who love playing out in the front yard, and we already can tell at rush hour, we have to constantly keep calling them in and have them extra careful. And I know if we add apartments, numbers are going to double, like what you've already heard. And our neighbors also have young kids, and they absolutely love playing out front. And I love that we get to have that family community, neighborhood community of kids playing together out front. I want to promote that, and I don't want them to be afraid of being out in the streets. And my neighbor actually wrote a letter. She's 7 years old. She's in 1st grade. She's here tonight. She didn't get here in time to sign the thing to speak, so I'm going to read it for you. She wrote it about a month ago when she heard that they would be building apartments, and she said, I think that building apartments is not a good idea because me and my brother and friends won't be able to play, and my family and me won't be able to do fires outside in case all the traffic and noise and honking, and I won't be able to sleep because of the honking. From her. Thank you for your time.
What's her name, Jacqueline?
Selah.
Is that her right there?
Uh-huh.
Hi. Thank you for your letter. Stephen Hurd, and then Sally Breyer.
Hi, Mayor Peterson, council members, thank you for having us. I can't really follow up with that letter, unfortunately, but yeah, just two additional things I wanted to call out. The stipulation, as someone already mentioned, it would be great to have a few more details on what that actually means. We've already had meetings with the traffic engineering organization, and they've not really found any solution acceptable. So it's hard to imagine, even when the numbers are higher, what exactly is going to be accomplished. So it would really be nice from a neighborhood perspective to know that. Yeah, right now that traffic count was done at the end of Aviary, and there is basically no destination at the end of Aviary right now. It goes to the Lumberyard, and then if you go up Neely, you can get to another neighborhood, an adjoining neighborhood. So it's really not very surprising to think that the amount would double in after the apartments are there. That is like very realistic. Like I just wanted to put into context the traffic numbers generated on that was about 1,400 trips for the apartment complex. That's about 1 car a minute going by your house every minute of the day for 24 hours. I just wanted everybody to kind of have that in their mind for the number of cars. And realistically, most of those are going to go down Aviary because to go north, as everyone has already mentioned, you go out Aviary and go up Cooper. That's how everybody in the neighborhood goes out to Cooper as well. And people in the adjoining neighborhood sometimes come through too. So like it's just realistic that that people living in an apartment complex would come out that area. So I just, wanted to voice those concerns. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. Sally Breyer, please.
Hello, Sally Breyer. I had everything written down on my phone and I accidentally deleted it and then deleted it again. So I'll just go with little notes that I wrote. I've lived in Gilbert for 32 years, raised our family here. We've lived in Neely Ranch for the last 17 years. We chose that neighborhood for the tree-lined streets, for the quiet, for the Gilbert-friendly atmosphere, which is quickly disappearing. We also live in Gilbert because of the great school districts, which, again, most of my friends are now homeschooling. That's how great it's been. I do not see anything good about the apartments except for maybe the money that's going to be made by the developer and maybe by the revenues that are coming into the city. But it's not helping our development, our community at all. It's not keeping our I can't think of the words, quality of life the way that it's been. It's only going to reduce it. It's only going to add more noise, it's going to add more traffic, and it's going to add more crime. The more people you have, the more trouble you have with crime. Also, I don't know if any of you've been to the bridge, the walking bridge in a while, that goes over the railroad track. Take a look at it. It looks like we are already in a slum. It's all rusting coming down onto the sides of the bridge. The parking that the apartments are saying that they're going to do, they've got the minimum, they're fulfilling that. They're never enough. Also, apartments. Have you ever known an apartment complex that goes up in value as far as what it brings to the neighborhood? And have you ever seen an apartment complex go up that they don't call a luxury apartment complex? Give me a break. They're not going to be luxury apartments where they're located. Again, one of the other people that have come up and talked about the animals, people are out in our neighborhood every night walking their dogs, walking just as families. if we're going to be having this traffic coming through, I know that that you've done your surveys with the road, but I'm sorry, it's a neighborhood. We want to keep our neighborhood safe, and it's not going to be safe with cars coming through that have a whole different agenda. They don't live in our neighborhood. They're going to be coming through quickly. Oh, and one more thing, our park is private, so I guess we're going to have to do something to keep the people that don't live in our neighborhood out. But it's, you know, nice to offer us to use your park, but our park is private. And that's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for all the public that's been here tonight. And I just want to reiterate something that Councilmember Tilke said was, as neighbors, you've been very friendly and nice and kind in your emails, the way that you spoke this evening, and I can't begin to tell you how much I appreciate that. For the past few years, it's not something that we've seen as the norm, so thank you all for that. I appreciate it very much. Next, I'll invite Mr. Baugh up to comment. If you want to comment on anything that was brought up this evening, Mr. Baugh, please.
Yes, I think there's a couple of things that I probably should address and then also provide a suggestion. First of all, our density is at 30 units an acre. The zoning category can allow up to 50 units an acre. So we're on the very, very lowest end of what we can do. And lest somebody think that we're going to come back later and come up with more, we have a PAD that commits us to that. So we can't go higher short of going through this entire process all over again. Councilwoman Buck, I don't think I'm going to change your mind, but I did want to kind of rest your mind at ease a little bit on one thing. 62% of our units are studios or one bedrooms. We have no 3 bedrooms. And so when you think through like the number of people who will be living here, so much are studios and single bedrooms that you don't see the same type of familial situation that you might see in a larger 3-bedroom type of apartment project. I don't think that changes my mind, but I at least wanted to help you understand at least that information that I didn't share the first time. There was a comment about this might be incompatible next to industrial, except for right now, the district lofts are right there next to industrial. And so they somehow have found a way not only to thrive and exist compatibly, but they've been very successful. They have, I don't think they've risen to a level of complaint status with the town that would discourage other multifamily from coming there. Within our project, we have open space, and we have 2 different park areas, one of which is a dog park. So when you think through the way, the amenities that we provide, we want to make sure our residents can self-contain instead of needing to go somewhere else. As I think through maybe the most important comment I heard, not to diminish any of the others, but maybe the most important one, seemed to center on traffic. And I'm not saying that we are ignoring traffic. What I'm saying is we will address the traffic when there's a true need to address the traffic. And I think it isn't because I don't want to address something today. I think through what is the professional engineering's role. I believe professional engineers want to make sure traffic works like veins and arteries work in your body, that traffic has a variety of ways it goes and works together, and not wanting to cut off a vein or an artery unless you know it needs to be cut off. And so the ability to measure this properly then gives them the tools to implement procedures then. There's a lot of things that could be done if needed. 1, striping. 2, signage. 3, chicanes. 4, speed tables. 5, the raised pavement markers. There's a lot of opportunities that the town can consider. And I don't think they're saying we won't do anything. I think they're saying, let's let the data influence our decision making. If needed, we'll come back. When that study was done in December, on a school day and a business day, it was in the middle of your roadway construction. So if cut-through traffic was happening, it probably was happening more at that time than another time when you weren't doing the road work along Elliott and Cooper Road. So I think that probably is a very accurate reflection of what more cut-through might be than in a normal situation. But in any event, it is unusual for a developer to commit himself to a future obligation for an unknown situation at a cost after he's baked it, built, and delivered his project. And I think we do that because their concern is heard. Their concern, if it becomes reality, should be addressed. And I think only those options could exist. A stipulation has been offered. I'm agreeable to the idea that we measure it during school days. I might make one more suggestion, and I'm embarrassed I hadn't thought of this before, but for what it's worth, there could be a stipulation added that could say that the applicant shall install no right turn, local traffic only signage on Neely Street. And so does that prevent somebody? I don't know if it can completely prevent them, but I do think it is a reminder that traffic should go down Neely Street and discourage it from going on Aviary Way. And just one more additional thing that we could do today to help make this go forward. Happy to answer any questions, but as I see this today, we are not ignoring the traffic concern. I think we're addressing it when the time is manifest.
Thanks, Mr. Baugh. Any, Vice Mayor Anderson?
Quick question. It was brought up about the second point of access. Can you describe what's going on with that?
Yeah. So the development needs a single point of access, obviously, to get in and get out. It needs a second point of access for emergency purposes. And so there is an opportunity. We've designed a stub street on our project to go north through the future retention area on the edge of it to connect, which was the likely Phoenix Avenue alignment that goes along parallel to the train tracks. That is a secondary way out of the property up until the point that my optimism will manifest and Neely Street will connect over or under the railroad track.
Manifest itself there. Councilmember Tilkey.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Baugh, you answered two of the questions I had. One was that it's already in writing on the number of units, and so you're not going to arbitrarily be able to make that change. And the second...
Councilwoman, frankly, I can't because an additional bedroom type requires more parking that I cannot fit into the development.
Great. The other one was the secondary exit. Could you explain, or if you prefer, staff could explain, I know that some of the residents had concerns about how the stipulation would work. I know that we don't have all those details today, but it's my understanding that if we approve this project today with that stipulation, it is there for the plan going forward. And there was no way that you would be able to say, I'm not going to do that, or that the town would not be part of those conversations. Is that correct?
Yeah, and the reason why it's not specific is because I don't know if in the future a speed table is the right option or chicane is, and nobody will know until they can do the study to determine what time of the day, what's the velocity of trips, and the number of trips. And so depending on what that data shows you, they may decide that a pinch on Aviary Way, or maybe there's an opportunity to redesign a different type of cul-de-sac. And I think giving the town the tools to select what is the right option is why there's the flexibility there. But the commitment exists nonetheless.
Yes, thank you. Mary, perhaps the addition on the sign, I don't know if that's something we need to ask staff, and do we need to wait till it's that time, or how would you like to proceed with that?
Since Mr. Baugh just recommended that, I would ask staff to potentially write up and we'll be calling staff up in a minute anyway, potentially write up a stipulation that Mr. Baugh mentioned about no right turn, local traffic only to be posted at Aviary on Neely. Is that possible to add as a stipulation? Is that something that we can do? Chris Payne, I'm looking at you. Planning, I'm looking at you.
And Mayor, if we can, I think you'll want that done immediately.
Yes, if we can have that written up so that we'll have something when we're done with this discussion, that we'll have something to work with. Mr. Baugh, I did have another comment too, please. Thanks, Kristen.
Hi, Mayor. I just wanted to let you know that we're conferring, and we'll get back to you on your question in just a moment.
Thanks, Kristen. Yes.
And it might be a requirement that says local traffic only, because as I think through no right turn, residents who go to that future park who want to go back to their
home.
neighborhood in Neely Ranch will probably want to turn right.
I think that's why, yeah, you mentioned local traffic only, so, and thank you for that offer, for that stipulation, and I would imagine it would have to be a separate stipulation from the one that you've already added. Could you explain, because one of the residents mentioned 9% of, could you explain what the 9% is of and where that number comes from, please?
Yeah. When your town's transportation engineers design roadways, arterials, major arterials, collectors, major collectors, and local residential streets, they assign a road type for the type of volume it's intended to carry. So in this case, a local collector street typically carries around 2,600 trips. So then we just look at the count. The count showed 240 trips on that day, and it wasn't at 2 a.m. or whatever was suggested. It's a summary of the 24-hour period. And so that number is how you derive the 9%. I think that number could be less if it weren't in the middle of construction traffic along that road. And I also suspect that you might have a different account if the counting occurred closer to Cooper Road and Aviary Way, but I think the point is if it's cut through, it should be going all the way through to the east end where our residents would likely be using it.
And so what you're saying is you did the count closer to Neely because that's where these cars would be coming from anyhow?
If they were truly being generated by the Lumberyard or the businesses there, they would be coming on the east, in and out of that east end entrance. We can measure it anywhere. It doesn't really matter to us. I mean, I think our commitment is just, remains the same.
Right, and yeah, thank you for that. So I think that Mr. Baugh did a great job explaining that every type of street has a count of what is projected to be seen on that type of street. And because this is a local collector, is that what you said, Adam? Local collector, it is expected to have up to 2,600 trips a day on that street. I think it's a local collector. Resident? Local collector, right? No?
Not collector, just local road.
Oh, sorry, local residential, okay. I heard local and residential, sorry. Local residential would have up to 2,600 trips a day, and what they saw was 240 trips a day, so it's only 9% of what you would typically see on a local residential street. I live on a local residential street, but I live across the street from Gilbert High School, and we happen to get a lot of cut-through traffic, and even though I live in the middle of the neighborhood, the traffic, for some reason, instead of going on the outside circle of my neighborhood, comes right through the middle of my neighborhood, which to me doesn't make any sense, but it happens every single day, and it has for as long as I've lived there, since 1996. So I completely understand where you're coming from. I think Mr. Baugh answered all of the other questions. I'm going to ask Chris, does anybody have any other questions for Mr. Baugh at this time? Because that would be, no? Yes?
I do have one more question,
Councilmember
Adam.
Kaprowski.
You answered most of my other questions through the other conversation and dialogue, but there was one comment about Neely Street specifically. There's a signal at Elliott, and it's a collector 3-lane cross-section up to Aviary. What are the improvements that this development will make to Neely Street, and what are the extents of those improvements?
We might need to ask staff that question. I know Neely Street is designed for 8,400 trips. I think between what's existing and what we're bringing will probably be around 2,700 trips, so still below what the volume is. But as far as the improvements, I think staff has an idea on what will be occurring at the intersection of Elliott and Neely Street.
But at the Lumberyard property, you'll be building the sidewalk and curb and gutter.
Sorry, I misunderstood. Well, your question, yes. Our full half-street improvements will occur along that stretch.
And that's not currently built right now?
No.
Thank you.
And up to the entrance of your neighborhood, because your entrance is actually at the north side of your neighborhood. Yeah, thank you. Susanna, did you have something to add?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and council members, as well as thank you, Adam, for bringing forward a suggestion. One of the reasons we put the stipulation in there for that 50 grand and to do it after the development was in was so we could accommodate things like signing. You know, maybe that no right turn lane or right turn signing would be appropriate. That would be a part of that stipulation that's already in there. So I just want to make sure that we wanted to have as much flexibility as we could to solve. If we have to solve the problem, we solve it. you know, at the time that we're really seeing where those issues are and being able to accommodate that appropriately from that perspective. So I just wanted to bring that to the forefront, that the stipulation that's written was really written to try to be as flexible as we could as we recognize what's happening once that facility would go in, so.
So from what I'm hearing, staff would recommend no separate stipulation, but to leave the stipulation that we have, maybe with the modifications made by Councilmember Kaprowski about school days, and to leave it flexible so that traffic engineering can look at all possibilities based on what they find.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Because there were lots of suggestions going on here, and it would be nice to be able to do that based off of you know, where we're at when the time comes and the traffic is there. So thank you.
Councilmember Kaprowski?
Susanna, some of the comments that were made seem like they may be slightly disconnected from this particular project, such as existing issues in the neighborhood. Does the town have a current procedure that the residents can work with town staff to evaluate the current effectiveness, or, for example, the comments about like the current speed humps and their design?
Certainly, excuse me, Mayor and Councilmember Kaprowski, I think that's a great question. You know, that would be something as we're looking at that. And I did go drive through that neighborhood this weekend to just kind of say, what does that look like? And, you know, I think there has been a definite attempt at this point in time to provide traffic calming. That was probably put in at a time in the past. And there are some ways of doing traffic calming today that are different than they were in other ways. One of the suggestions I felt is probably necessary is for us to maybe go ahead and do some of those traffic counts as it exists today under our own guidance, and obviously do that after the improvements that are being made on that Elliott intersection right now, and just kind of be able to say what's the before versus the after. So that was one thing that I was going to ask staff to do anyway, so thank you.
Thank you. And since you're up there, one of my questions for you or staff are, what are the current improvements at Cooper and Elliott? What's the final condition going to look like there?
Great question, and I might have to call a friend for this one, but I do know that we are improving that. There were some choices as we went through that design that we did not absolutely widen it as much as possible. We had some things that were influencing us being able to do that effectively and appropriately, but we are widening that intersection in order to basically, you know, move that traffic through there a whole lot better than what it had in the past. And as far as the absolute improvements that are going on there, I might have to call a friend. So thank you.
And I don't know whether it would be you, Susanna, or maybe someone from a different department, but I know that there actually are not a lot of speed humps in the town of Gilbert or in a lot of other communities in the valley because of the emergency response times. So this is actually pretty rare that this neighborhood has that mitigation there. So I know there's a lot of comments that were specifically kind of pointed at traffic engineering, but I think that it's the combination of making sure that our residents have the mobility and access, but also that our emergency responders have that access in a timely manner as well.
Yes, Councilman Karowski, you are exactly right with that, is that is one of the real items that happen with this traffic calming, is to make sure that we are being able to get that emergency vehicles in and out. The fact that we cannot really close off that to the cul-de-sac suggestion was in there was primarily there's very little access in and out of those neighborhoods in that area, and that would just restrict us even further for us to get and provide that emergency access appropriately. And definitely any traffic calming measures have to be able to accommodate those emergency vehicles.
Thank you.
Typically, Susanna, a cul-de-sac also has to accommodate the turn radius for a fire engine, correct?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And so that's always an issue because they're quite large vehicles. Any other questions or comments for Susanna, since we have her up here? Seeing none, then I'll bring Kristen back up for any comments that anyone might have for staff. I'm following my order of proceedings here. specifically. Any comments or questions for Kristen at this time?
I'm just hoping she has the stipulation.
Actually, we just heard from Susanna that staff would prefer no second stipulation. Did you want a second
No,
stipulation?
I just wanted to make sure she had the changes that
Oh.
were recommended.
Okay, thank you. Kristen, do you have the changes for the original stipulation that was given to us this evening?
I do, Mayor and Councilmember Tilke. So I updated it to say 1 year after the final certificate of occupancy is issued, the developer shall conduct a 3 consecutive weekday while school is in session traffic count along Aviary Way to determine actual daily trips. If the average daily trips for the 3-day period exceeds 540 daily trips, the developer shall work with the town of Gilbert to identify and implement additional traffic calming measures or other staff-approved mitigation efforts. The developer shall be financially responsible for maximum financial contribution not to exceed $50,000.
Thank you, Kristen. Any other questions or comments for Kristen at this time? Kristen, there was a comment made about our pedestrian bridge and the look of our pedestrian bridge. And if think I'm correct, it's a copper finish, so it's supposed to look like it's rusted, I think was the term that was used. And can I get confirmation from staff on that? I see Ava shaking her head. Yes.
Say, Mayor, I see Ava nodding, so I'm going to go with her. My phone a friend here, yes.
Thank you. Didn't mean to put you on the spot with that, Kristen. I just thought since I had staff up there. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
I will go ahead and bring this item back to the dais for discussion. I will close the public hearing. Anyone wishing to discuss this item further or make any comments before we make a motion? Councilmember Bongiovanni.
Thank you, Mayor. Sometimes I wish that I wasn't required to vote. Sometimes, you know, I wish I had a choice to vote or not vote. This is one of those times. But when we don't vote, and when we don't get a choice to vote, problems can happen. One specifically right down the street, recently Burgie's Coffee Shop was sold, and Bottled Blonde, a pizza place by day, and nightclub by night will be opening. 5,000 people signed a petition and asked us to stop it. That's put in perspective, that was 2 times the amount of people that gave us or signed a petition for us to stop teenage brass knuckles. And we can't stop it because they're staying within code, and there's no reason for them to come to the council. My concern is that could happen again, and it could happen in that property itself. Someone could, as was mentioned earlier, that it could be a good property. Someone could come and want to build industrial, a huge building, a tall building, which could bring problems on their own. And I hate to see us in a situation like that again, where no matter how many citizens came to us and told and you know, asked us to not approve it, for us not to be in a situation to even vote to approve it or not. You know, the way I look at it is, you know, we've come to terms with the developer to look at traffic a year from now. If there's problems, we're just going to have to fix it. And I just don't want to be in that same situation again.
I'm just going to clarify, a year after C of O is given on the property, not a year from now. I just want to make sure. Any other comments? Discussion? Vice Mayor?
I'm very sympathetic with the concerns that have been expressed tonight. We've heard it a lot as Gilbert has continued to grow. There was a comment made tonight that people need a place to work. That's why we should keep it as industrial. Well, people that are working in the industrial need a place to live. And the average person moving to Gilbert now is looking at a median home value of $500,000. That's a little bit difficult to swallow for somebody just wanting to get started here in Gilbert. And we certainly want new residents moving to Gilbert. And so that's why we're seeing apartment projects around town. But I want you to know that Gilbert is still a single-family residential community. Only about 12% of our housing stock in Gilbert is actually in multifamily. And just to give you perspective on that, our adjoining communities, Mesa, Tempe, Phoenix, are probably about 40, maybe 50% multifamily and 50% single family. We're at about 88 or 90% single family. And I know that doesn't solve any of the issues. I think the stipulation that we've talked about tonight will go a long ways to solve that. And it's unusual, very unusual in a multifamily project to come up with a stipulation like we've come up with tonight. Very unusual. And I think it'll work for the benefit overall for the entire community as well as for Neely Ranch. And I appreciate you all being here tonight expressing your concerns. Thank you.
Thanks, Vice Mayor. Any other comments? I'll just add that Vice Mayor did a great job to point out that we are about 88, 89% single family with 11 or 12% of multifamily in our community. And every single day, our state legislature is trying to find ways to force multifamily into every community in the state of Arizona, to the point of they're trying to pass legislation that would say just about any land zoned in any way would be able to be built with multifamily. And when Councilmember Bongiovanni comments on us not having a vote, we wouldn't have a vote. We wouldn't have a choice. We wouldn't have an option. We most likely wouldn't be able to even look at the design of those buildings, and they'd be able to build anything that they wanted, any place that they wanted to. So as we're hearing from the residents that you don't want multifamily, we completely hear what you're saying, why you're saying it, and how you're saying it. We are trying to balance being a community that has enough of both in a Gilbert way. And that's why we have chosen to keep it at such a low percentage while looking at different opportunities that come forward. We have a case here where a developer has come forward with a project and asked us to change something in order to accommodate their use that they want to have. When a developer comes forward with a project, we really have to entertain those projects. By state law, we have to look at what they're asking for, and we do our best to make those projects the best possible projects we can make them. Almost 2 years ago, we had a presentation by Elliot Pollock, who looks at the cost of doing business in the state, and he came to us and told us that in the town of Gilbert, you would have to make, almost 2 years ago, you would have to make at least $45,000 to afford an apartment in the town of Gilbert. I can guarantee you today it is higher than that. It's probably up to $50,000. My salary as mayor, I would not be able to afford an apartment in Gilbert. When we say luxury apartments, what you're getting in Gilbert is luxury apartments because they meet the market demand of the community. And this community demands something higher by design, by what the amenities are for the properties, and that's why it takes time to go through the process. And in this case, we were able to work out a situation that we are able to purchase land that we desperately need in the Heritage District to account for water retention that we're going to have in the future that we need to be able to provide for this community. So this has been a great way for us to be able to meet the need of our community in a couple of different ways. And I definitely sympathize with you as to the multifamily and understand your concerns. And I just wanted you to know what we're trying to balance at the same time when we're looking at every single one of these projects individually. And Mr. Baugh mentioned that we started this conversation well over a year and a half ago in 2022. And projects like this take that time because we're looking at them so closely. So I would entertain a motion. It needs to be done in 2 separate motions, please, for the general plan and 1 for the zoning, if anybody would like to tackle them. And please remember to include the stipulation.
Mayor, I'm looking, did you? Oh. I thought Councilmember Bongiovanni wanted to do this. So which one has the stipulation?
I have it listed as both GP and Z, so.
But you said I had to do it in 2 separate, so that's
Well,
why.
you have to make a general plan motion and a separate zoning motion, because they're two separate items.
And they'll both have the stipulation? That's what I'm asking.
Is that right, Kristen?
Mayor, Councilmember Tilkey, it should just be the zoning.
Okay,
Zoning.
because it's both on here.
Okay,
Sorry.
okay.
I apologize.
I will try this
Thank you,
then.
Kristen.
I'd like to make a motion to approve general plan GP 22-16.
I have a motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Tilkey, seconded by Councilmember Kaprowski. Please vote. Did you fat finger that? Motion passes 5-2. And would you like to tackle the next one? Thank you.
Mayor, I'd like to approve zoning case Z 22-16 with the addition of the stipulation. Do I need to read it in full?
I would say as read by Kristen.
Oh, as read by Kristen. That's it, yeah.
I have a motion by Councilmember Tilkey. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Kaprowski. Please vote. Motion passes 5-2. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your patience. That was a long hearing to get through. We appreciate everybody coming out. And again, to the residents, thank you for being so friendly and kind on this topic. We are going to recess for about 5 minutes. Thank you.
Mayor, could I just need to excuse myself at this time.
Oh,
So I
yes.
apologize, but I won't be able to stay for the rest. Thank you.
Thank you very much. give a 20-second just to get everybody back in their seats, and Scott September can make his way out. He's visiting with everybody. All right, I'll bring this meeting back to order and back to Vice Mayor for the consent calendar. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. Looks like we are going to pull item 17. Item 22 has been taken off the agenda. And I'd like to also pull items 24 and 25 and add 31 and 32. Is that correct?
31 and 32, yes. We will be adding 31 and 32 to the consent agenda. 31 would be the appointment of the Parks and Recreation Board. Councilmember Bongiovanni, do you have that information with you?
Yes, I do.
If you would like to read that now, and then I'll do the judicial part.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Mayor. Consideration appointment to the Parks and Recreation Board, Holly Pristulski, Florence Daniels, Desiree Hoffman, with terms beginning May 13th, 2014, and ending May 12th, 2027, and John Dale, with a partial term beginning May 13th, 2024, and ending May 12th, 2025, and a full term beginning May 13th, 2025, and ending May 12th, 2028. Congratulations.
And then I have for the Judicial Selection and Advisory Board, I have 4 non-state bar members, one with a term of May 7th, 2024 to February 15th, 2027. That would be Juan Marcos Romero. And then the other 3 with terms May 7th, 2024 to February 15th, 2026. That would be John Torbett, Benjamin Dranitz, and Christine Kaiselka. And then I have 2 State Bar of Arizona members with terms beginning May 7th, 2024 and ending February 15th, 2027. That would be Clint Dunaway and Stephanie Lowe Novotny. I also have the Peoria Presiding Magistrate John Tatz as the Court Magistrate member with a term beginning May 7th, 2024 and ending February 15th, 2027. I also have Adam Walterson as a member from Gilbert Municipal Court Administration with a term beginning May 7th, 2024 and ending February 15th, 2027. And I have Tamika Hartman as the personnel professional from the town of Gilbert with a term beginning May 7th, 2024 and ending February 15th, 2027. Someone like to make a motion on the consent agenda, including those 2 board and commissions?
I'll make a motion.
I have a motion by the Vice Mayor. Can I have a second?
I'll second it.
I have a second by Councilmember Bongiovanni. Please vote. Motion passes 6-0. Councilmember Tilkey had to leave us this evening. Vice Mayor, next
Item
item.
17, Councilmember Torgerson.
Item 17.
I would like a explanation of exactly how $140,000 of LED screens own, lease, the value of it. Do we have anybody that can tell me anything?
Oh, Rocky Brown. See Rocky Brown approaching the podium from Parks and Rec.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Sorry, I didn't quite hear that entire question.
I just wanted to have an understanding. We're looking at 2 screens for $140,000. I want to know whether it's owned, leased, operated. It's saying it's for movies, messages, and displays during special events. Is there any other use for this?
Yep, Mayor.
Full scope of the explanation.
Councilmember Torkelson, these would be to purchase 2 screens that we would own and all be able to self-operate. They're self-contained. These screens would be able to be used out at Gilbert Regional Park, also in the downtown for special events. As Gilbert Regional Park continues to grow and attract larger events, One of the things we're finding is that it's such a great, huge lawn that it's tough to sell high-ticketed events if there's not a better viewing angle of just our stage there. So we believe that adding these screens into the inventory will be able to continue to attract yard events that we're getting requests from promoters for.
How big are these screens?
They come in 2 enclosed trailers. They're about 16 by 14 LED screens, all self-enclosed. And they're elevated, so they get stored within a trailer, and they elevate from the trailer, so that way when they're not in use, they're out of the elements and can be, safely stored.
Would you like to make a motion on those, Councilmember?
I'd like to make a motion to approve item number 17 as written.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
I'll second it.
A motion by Councilmember Torgerson, seconded by Councilmember Bongiovanni. Please vote. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Item 24, Councilmember Torgerson.
This is the budget for the contingency fund for the police department. And I wanted to hear a little bit about what we're using these funds for and why we are approaching again, as the last few years it's been short and we've gone to contingency, how we could possibly get this budgeted so we're not having to go to a contingency fund late. Because it's been last year was 2.9 million, whatever it was before that was 2 something. So just see if there's a better way to budget so we don't actually have to ask for it.
Mayor Peterson, Councilmember Torgerson, Mike Solberg with the Police Department. As you mentioned, last year we did a contingency request to 2.98. The year before we did just under 2 million, similar to what we have this year, which is 2.3 for this year. Part of your question comes into the process of how we do our budget. We budget conservatively, not just the police department, the entire town budgets conservatively based on past year's expenses. Routinely, as you indicated, we have exceeded our overtime that has been budgeted. We have not increased the cap of that overtime. Obviously, our intent is to reduce and minimize that overtime, but we've kept it somewhat consistent in the amount of overtime that's budgeted, knowing that we do have the contingency, so as the year goes, with market adjustments, inflationary increases, contract increases, that has the ability. And so normally we wait till the end of the fiscal year. We were going to come about 4 months ago because we knew we were going to be over, but we decided to hold off until the end of closer to the end of the fiscal year. So we had a better accounting of the year-to-date expenditures and minimizing that unknown for the next 6 to 8 weeks that we foresee for the rest of the fiscal year. The breakdown of that 2.3 million, 1.9 is personnel costs. That is our highest expense. Obviously, with all our departments, the personnel costs are the most expensive. Some of those causes, we provide you a very high-level summary of what the driving forces of those are, and most of those are staffing issues, vacancy shortages. We are doing much better than most agencies in the valley, and we're roughly around a 4% vacancy rate between professional staff and sworn, but those are still critical positions. We also run a lean organization to where when we do have vacancies, a lot of those positions, we do have to backfill for those depending on where those are at. So out of that 1.9, a lot of it is due to staffing shortages. Part of it is increased workload, and then our basic training and advanced training. So we have, and that's one adjustment we did do with this next year for fiscal year 25 of increasing that training budget. It does not cover the 3-year average, but it does cover some of what we've been experiencing over the last 3 years. A lot of that training overtime comes from when we hired a new police officer. The 6 months in the academy, and then roughly 3 to 4 months out in the field of that officer in training. There's usually extra hours spent in that training process, going over cases, report writing, and also for part of that time for the field training officer to be there with them and guide them through as they learn that process. And so that has a tendency to increase. And we see that fluctuation as we graduate from the academy every 6 months. We'll see an increase in the overtime for training because that's categorized as training. When we track our overtime, which we look at it monthly, through our ComStat reports, we have budget reports, and then a quarterly report. And we've now built up, through the performance management, a dashboard that we can look at internally. And with the overtime, it's divided up. It's not as granular as you may like, but it is divided up by division and then by the cause. So we have roughly 20+ categories: court overtime, call-out overtime, we have standby, we have held over due to workload. So if you have a busy shift, you're held over on an investigation. We have report writing categories for overtime. We have critical staffing, so we have a minimum number of officers that we have to have on the street. And so if we're short, we bring somebody in. We do everything we can to minimize that overtime. That overtime is a big impact on this $1.9 million. In addition to that, we also have the vehicle, which was $360,550, which most of that's due to price increases for gas and utilities, if you will, on vehicles. And then the $56,000 was due to an error that when we upgraded to AT&T network, the old systems were not turned off. That was an error, and we incurred some additional costs because of that. Any additional questions?
No, I just appreciate you delineating it for me. Thank you.
Chief, you mentioned that we're doing better than other communities. Is this typically how other communities handle when they have shortages like this, contingency? I know for us here with public safety, it's a contingency every single year because we do budget very lean, and so we have to make up the difference at this time of the year.
Yes. For my experience here, we've usually each year we have some contingency requests, and in my prior experience, yes. Each agency, each valley city is slightly different, and depending on how the economic times and the budget, that has an impact. But it is normal to have a contingency request, especially from public safety, when a lot of the factors that push our budget are out of our control.
Thanks, Chief. Any other questions? Councilmember Kaprowski?
Hi, Chief. Thank you for being transparent on the reasons for the contingency request. I think that's really important. I have a question about, might be more for Kelly, but in the zero-based budgeting process, would do the contingency requests over those 3 years prior to that zero-based evaluation, do those go into the reevaluation of what the budget for your department would be?
Thank you, Mayor, Councilmember Kaprowski. On the zero base, we look at all the contractual lines, but the overtime line, the departments have to do a budget package and request if they want additional funds, and then it would have to be funded in the budget process. So that one's a little bit different. Items like if there's a special investigation or something, if it's an average of 3 per year, we'll only put in 3, even though there might be a year when they have 4 or 5, and then they would need contingency because we budget and do zero based off of what's the most likely scenario, not what's the worst case scenario.
Thank you.
Councilmember Bongiovanni.
Thank you, Mayor. Hey, Chief. Can you state the number again, the contingency last year compared to this year?
2.98, and so
Last year.
2.98 million last year. And when you look at our Mayor, Councilmember Bongiovanni, when you look at our last 3 years, we see trends, and when you look at the graph of our overtime expenditures, we see that cycle where in the summer it spikes, in the around the holidays it spikes, and so we're right in line. We're lower than what we were for fiscal year 23, but above where we were in fiscal year 22. But the same pattern is very obvious as we've gone through, that depending on the season and the overtime, that impacts. It's in line with what we normally see.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Any other questions or comments for Chief? Or Kelly, since the budget? No? Would somebody like to make a motion on this item?
I'll make a motion to adopt item number 24 of the consent agenda as written.
I second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Torgerson, seconded by Councilmember Buckley. Please vote. Motion passes 6-0. Next item, Vice Mayor.
Item 25, Councilman Torgerson.
I wanted to hear a little bit about the grant money coming in, and to note that in Section A, it's missing the dollar sign in front of the number. So if we could alter that and put the dollar sign in, it'd be kind of nifty.
Oh, it's in A, it's missing, but in B, it's there.
Yeah.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the question regarding this grant opportunity. This is a formulaic grant that is provided by the federal government, the Department of Energy. So every city, state entity has a formulaic amount, and Gilbert's number is listed in there without a dollar sign, as you mentioned. The $266,000 and $640 for specific energy efficiency programs. And the federal government has laid out a lot of lists of potential projects or programs that could be funded by this grant. And our proposal is to look at electric vehicle charging stations, either at the Heritage District 2 garage or the town hall for the public.
And what are that's one of the things we can do with it. What are the reporting responsibilities of that? What have we engaged in beyond that?
This is actually very streamlined, especially for a federal grant. So there will be the typical reporting requirements where we use the funding, but they've actually done it very, very streamlined. So it should be minimal regarding a federal grant. Of course, we'll have our accounting team be involved in that as well. And then the projects that we've already looked at, or that we'll look at, already have these electric vehicle charging stations planned for them. So it's not like we're adding something additional onto a capital project that we already have planned. It's already incorporated in there, so it'd be actually reducing the cost of those capital projects.
The grant money's not, it's going to replace money that would have come out of a fund, a CIP fund of some sort.
Yes.
And just because it's a pet peeve of mine with Department of Transportation and other federal things, I don't suppose that we're getting locked into a Safe Streets for All campaign or any other sort of reporting campaign.
Right, correct.
As I've seen before?
No, we're not.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think staff has heard us loud and clear when it comes to federal grants that there should be no strings attached. I think is probably what Councilmember Torgerson is getting to. So no strings attached. Thank you, Eric. And thank you for clarifying that it would replace funding that we would have to find in another way to do a project that we were looking to do otherwise. Any other comments or questions? Would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt consent agenda number 25 as written, except for the missing dollar sign.
A and B?
It will be added in number A.
Thank you. I have a motion. Can I have a second?
I'll second that one.
I have a motion by Councilmember Torgerson, seconded by Councilmember Bongiovanni. Please vote. Motion passes 6-0.
That concludes the consent calendar, Mayor.
Excellent, Vice Mayor. Excuse me. We will move on to item number 30, which means I need to recess our regular meeting and convene in a special meeting to discuss item number 30, budget for the FY25 property tax levy. Kelly, I assumed you'd have some sort of a small presentation.
I could do a quick slide, or it is the same information that we discussed in the study session earlier today. This is a public hearing for the property tax. So the proposed rate's 33 million, or levy, 33,275,000, and it would maintain the rate of 98 cents per $100 of assessed value, same rate that we had last year. And we can receive input from the public and from council if you want anything different on the documents that come for final adoption on May 4th. This is the time to provide that feedback.
Any comments for Kelly at this time on this item? Councilmember Torgerson.
June 4th, but May 4th is in the past. Yeah, you know, I'm ornery. It's late and I've been here since 3. I heard you say something earlier that we were going to have to go into our contingency regarding this.
Yes, we will have to go into our reserves this next year. When we set the proposed levy, we looked at the debt service, principal and interest that would need to be paid, and we knew that the county was in the middle of a lawsuit and would likely have to do refunds. We guesstimated what those refunds would be and put in an amount of about $625,000 built into that rate. We later received information from the county that the refunds for Gilbert will be about $1.5 million. So they will take that money out before it ever comes to us. And then the amount that comes to us will not be enough for us to make our principal and interest payments. So we will have to dip into the reserves in that fund to finish making those payments.
So I don't get to try and pinch $264,640 off of that, do I?
We are well pinched this year.
Okay, all right. I appreciate it, because I was going to go do that again, but it doesn't sound like it's a good year to do that. Thank you.
And unfortunately, something that's completely out of our control, and thank you for guesstimating over $600,000, and then for it to come out being 1.5 million is a huge difference for us, and to have to come up with that funding, and especially in a year that we know we're losing funding with residential rental tax and the other things that we see coming down. So this is, I don't have any slips from anybody wishing to speak, and it is not an item for a vote. So I think, does anyone have any other questions or comments for Kelly? She can move forward with June 4th, to bring this back to us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly. Then I will go ahead and adjourn the special meeting and reconvene our regular meeting and bring it to.
Mayor Peterson, if I
Yes.
could just
Did I miss
interrupt
something?
before you move on. No, you did not.
Okay.
But before you move on, I think you've done all the administrative items.
We have not. We haven't gotten to the Community Engagement Task Force.
Before we move on to community engagement, you did have some appointments of the Judicial Advisory Board.
Did that.
And the question is, there's no council liaison currently.
Oh.
The prior one was Councilmember Hendricks, who's obviously hasn't been on the council for a while, because the board has not had a need to meet. So the question is, if you want to appoint a liaison, you can do so, or you could do so at a different time.
You know what, that board will probably have to meet a couple of times over the rest of this year, correct? I would love to take that one if I can, unless somebody else is interested in it, but in January it will be up for grabs because there'll be a change in all the liaison positions. So I would love to take that one, Chris.
That's, no votes needed, it's just something that you can just do yourself, so.
Okay.
Mayor will make sure you get noticed when those meetings convene.
Thank you. Kirsten, assignment number 19, I think that is for me. Add it to the list. But I would love to work with them, especially the people that we just appointed. I think it'll be great. Meeting them Monday night was fabulous, and I think it'd be a great opportunity for the next 7 or 8 months. Thank you. Thanks, Chris. Thank you for that. Moving on to administrative items. Sorry, trying to get through this without coughing. We have one item for boards and commissions. Consider approval of the following amendments to the Community Engagement Task Force. Unfortunately, Councilmember Tilke had to leave. Does any staff have information on this that you might want to share and what these updates are for? Because I don't even know. I haven't discussed them. Do you, Councilmember Krabrowski?
I believe this is formalization of what the council discussed at our last meeting.
Thank you. I know Councilmember Tilke and I passed in the hall today and discussed it for like a split second before we came down for study session. Add the focus area of teen violence and assign the tasks of reviewing existing resources and programs, discovering where there may be gaps and improvements, and present recommendations to the Gilbert Town Council in areas of resources, education, and promotion. Set the membership to 11 regular members total, to include no less than 4 teens who attend schools within the Gilbert boundary and who are not seniors in the current 2023-2024 school year, with all members being residents of Gilbert. Now, I know based on the amount of applicants that we had, I had suggested at the last meeting it say up to 4, and I would recommend not locking us into 4, but saying up to 4, just based on how many I know have applied.
I'm good with that.
Are you okay with that? Yes, I'm seeing heads shake. Okay, so we would change that to be up to 4 teens. That gives us a little more leeway.
Mayor, do you have, I mean, if we make this change, we will have to notify all the applicants because this was published in the board's application.
It was published, but it wasn't solidified till we vote on it tonight, till
Yeah.
tonight.
So we
So,
can just have Judy let them know that that changed.
yes, we can have the clerk's office let them know. Judy, are you hearing that? Thank you. Include 2 adult alternates and 1 teen alternate. Direct staff to seek additional non-voting representatives from Gilbert, Higley, and Chandler School Districts, American Leadership Academy, Santan Charter School, Gilbert Christian School, Mayor's Youth Advisory Committee, and a representative from the Gilbert Police Department, as recommended by the police chief. Councilmember Tilke had said something to me about schools. Did you discuss this with her, Councilmember Kaprowski, and a concern with which schools, because who attends schools within the Gilbert boundary? I think it's open enough that it won't be an issue for us, but I haven't looked at the detail of the people that applied. So I think with the up to 4, we should be okay with the teens.
How many teams did apply? I saw the list today, but I didn't, okay.
4.
Okay.
And that's why I'm saying we don't
Yeah,
want to
yeah,
say.
yeah, that's fine.
And so I think as long as we stay within the Gilbert boundary, I think we're okay. If we need to modify, we can come back, but I think we're okay. Would anybody like to make a motion? Oh, I'll just do it. I move to approve item 33 with the amendment to B to be up to 4 teens who attend schools within the Gilbert boundary. The rest of it, okay for A, C, and D. Can I have a second?
I'll second that.
I have a second by Councilmember Bongiovanni. Please vote. Motion passes 6-0. And Judy, if you could send out a communication to everybody that applied, just so that they have an update on what was approved this evening, that would be wonderful. Thank you. Now moving on to communications from citizens. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. The Gilbert Town Council values citizen comments and input. Anyone wishing to speak before the council must fill out a request to speak card for each item they wish to speak on and submit it to the town clerk or place it in the bin provided prior to the start of the meeting. The communications from citizens portion on the agenda provides citizens an opportunity to identify for the town council matters of interest or concern related to town government. Under the provisions of the Arizona Open Meeting Law, the town council is prohibited from responding to issues that have not been properly noticed. Therefore, the town council may only listen to citizens who wish to address them, and at the conclusion of the open call to public, response is limited to individual members of the council responding to criticism made by those who have addressed the public body, asking staff to review a matter, or asking that a matter be put on a future agenda. While we understand and appreciate the passion our community members bring to these sessions, we must remind everyone that clapping during the meeting is not acceptable. This practice can disrupt the flow of discussion, potentially intimidate others, and detract from the respectful atmosphere we strive to maintain. The town asks that when your name is called, you come forward to the podium, state your name and place of residence, and then begin speaking. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. First up tonight is Kristen Howard. Is Kristen here? Kristen will be followed by Mindy Brocker.
Hello, good evening. I didn't plan on really speaking. However, I didn't even know the construction was going on with the apartments going on Neely and Cooper as well. But coming to my attention, it's already approved. So there's not much really I can say, but it's going to cause major traffic issues as the development of the construction on the road at this point is also causing construction issues for foundations, homes. My pool is being destroyed right now by the construction, actually. I've been in contact with Rocky Brown about it, but my concern is who's going to take care of this considering we do not have HOA in Madera Park. So I am going to be filing a claim with the town, but yeah, I'm just really disappointed that a $9 million project has destroyed my home that I've lived in for almost 6 years, and I can't imagine what the apartments are going to do to the residents in the area coming up. So, wish we could keep the quality of Gilbert going. Thank you.
Thank you. Mindy Brocker, to be followed by Carissa Arnold.
I don't see anybody coming up.
Nobody coming up. Carissa?
Hello. I wanted to just touch base a little bit. We've had some opportunity to go down, a group of us have, and visit the parking garage and just kind of get a feel for what is going on down there and just to kind of get some better understanding of situations and stuff. And I've had opportunity to watch the individuals that are up there going back and forth in between the parking garage, pouring liquid off the garage, hanging out. They have a lookout person that has been sitting in the stairwell and everything. I know that there's been an increased police presence down there, which has been great. We've had the opportunity to talk with Officer Wojciechowski, Officer Burke, Castillo, and Lopez, and they were all great, and they were out there doing their jobs, and we really appreciate that. And just wanted to say thank you, specifically to those individuals who were up there trying to deter the issues going on. Unfortunately, in that as well, we also, and down there, were observing, and I want to precede this and say that we are for our officers and for the community and everything like that. But it was really disheartening when we watched over 2 different nights, officers sitting at Whiskey Row for over an hour having conversations and not working. And they were on their cell phones and doing other things. And one of those nights happened to be the same night that the gun went off at the porch. So this was just on Friday night. And so just a few hours before, there were up to 10 officers in that corner area between Whiskey Row and Oso. And so my concern is that we have an issue up at the parking garage. And so rather than the officers being staggered so much in that corner, to have them moving around and policing the community, just so that we can make sure that these issues are getting addressed. As well, it seems to be, would be a danger to the officers to have their backs facing the street and not really knowing what is going on around them. It seems like it would make them a target as well for any citizen to come up behind them and cause an issue, especially now that we know that there's been a gun violence issue or gun issue at the porch, right? So here's our proposal for the parking garage. We are asking that, we know that there's going to be a deficit coming in budget-wise with the Arizona rent tax being removed. So the proposal that we would ask for you guys as a city council is that you start putting a fee on the parking garage so that your officers are not having to swing back and forth and use their time on staff to specifically sit up there and monitor the top of those parking garages, that you put the bars up there and charge a fee for entry, and that will help eliminate some of the kids that are up there, because we do know that they have lookouts. We've seen it. Officers feel like they've confirmed it as well as we've had conversations with them. The individuals that are up there are actually notifying groups when officers are coming up to the parking garage so that they can leave. They're taking pictures of the officers up there and everything. We've witnessed all of this. And so, so the proposal would be that you guys as a city council look into putting that fee up there for the garage. Thank you.
Thank you, Carissa. Scott, is it Myers? Scott will be followed by Mark Noyce.
Soon to be gone mayor. Thank you for not rerunning. Council, my name's Scott. I'm a East Valley citizen and a community advocate. Tonight I would like to address the Chief of Police. Chief, my first order would be asked that you resign. We've asked you before to resign for many reasons. If you don't resign, we're asking Town Manager Banger and Assistant Town Manager Goodman to remove you from office for many reasons. You and your department have done a bad job on teen violence. And let's be honest, it's not like the attackers leave a business card after the beatings and you say they're not identifiable as the goons. If you and your department would have made arrests sooner, like in the Rick Keener case, these thugs would have been scared to continue their actions of beating 5 to 10 on 1. Preston Lord would probably be here today, as it would have deterred them to continue their thuggish actions that ran rapid in Gilbert, some in the other East Valley cities. If you don't resign, or get removed, I'd like to personally invite you To our Citizens Patrol, we have been doing weekends, downtown Gilbert garages last 3 or 4 weeks, so you can see what your officers are and are not doing. We've called the non-emergency for underage drinking and vaping in the 30 East Vaughn garage, only to have 3 bike patrol officers let the kids go drive away after we told them they have open containers in their car. Since the officers let them go, we again had to call non-emergency and give dispatch the license plates of these kids that are underage drinking, vaping, and had open containers in their car. Again, like Chris has said, we found 8 to 10 officers standing around Whiskey Row. Are they posted there, or is it just flirting with the bar patrons, which we've observed for those few hours? Saturday night, we went back the day after the shooting, and there was absolutely no officers near Whiskey Row or the bars that night after the shooting. Why is that? Is it protocol? I'd be more than happy to talk to you about our Citizens Patrol we've been doing, and you're more than welcome to join us. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark Boyce. Mark will be followed by Steve Lavelle.
Hello, my name is Mark Noyce. I'm a resident of Gilbert. And first, I'd like to thank you for giving me the opportunity of voicing my opinion. My dispute is with the city of Gilbert in regards to Tilson's method of installing fiber optics in our neighborhood. Tilson is tunneling through our front yards, and in my case, they destroyed our driveway in the process. They have cut a 9-inch hole in my driveway. They have admitted to me that the patch job that they will perform at a later date will not match our 25-year-old driveway. Our driveway was near perfect before Tyson destroyed it. Tilson, excuse me. The curb appeal to our home has since diminished and will affect the value of our home. Along with this, the pain and suffering Tilson has put on my wife and I during this fiasco has been overwhelming, to say the least. I have reached out to several Tilson representatives. Jeff, the field construction manager, came out in person per my request to discuss the matter. Jeff explained to me he would avoid cutting a hole in my driveway by measuring the depth of the sewer lines from neighboring homes. In addition to that, he further explained he would install a camera down our sewer cleanout and monitor the sewer line while tunneling under our driveway. He also added that the equipment was down for repair and wouldn't be available for 2 weeks. Jeff sounded quite convincing. I put my trust in him. 4 days later, I returned from work to our home only to discover a hole in our driveway. Now, my conclusion, in order to restore our driveway, the only acceptable solution is to demo our entire existing driveway and replace it. In my opinion, the city of Gilbert, along with Tilson, are the responsible parties for correcting this issue. And again, I have pictures, I have contact information, estimate for the driveway, but just want to thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, Vice Mayor. Sir, if you could leave your contact information with our clerks, we'll have someone get in touch with you.
And thank you, Steve Lavelle. Steve will be followed by Don Edwards.
Good evening. Not sure if you guys have been aware of what's going on the college campuses across the United States of America, but anti-Semitic racism, all driven by, of course, DE&I, the beautiful diversity, equity, and inclusion, which you guys still allow to have and take place in this town. So let's talk some more about this. DE&I does nothing but cause division. It puts people into tribes. That's what it does. That's the purpose. It's Marxism. And you're allowing it in our community. Patrick tripled down when talking about the ODG team that pushed that. So we'll get back into the racial hiring and the gender hiring that took place that was addressed right here in this Pierce-Coleman report. And I'll offer Patrick a public debate over this 16-page report if he'd like to do it with me. In this report, It says the investigation team found that while the town has goals to increase diversity in applicant and hiring pools, there are no quotas. Qualifications remain the key focus in the town's hiring practice. If you have goals to increase something, then you are telling us that you are hiring based on diversity and gender. Because if you don't hit your goals, you get fired. That's the way business works. Continues on that it also says there were no indications of unfair hiring practices based on race, gender, disability, or any other distinct category. Now, I sent all you guys this information. You have it now. You can't deny it. You can't say that it's just my perception anymore. I sent you the documents. You saw the 28 people. You saw the original list, and you saw the emails I sent you. The proof is right there. Nothing in the evidence reviewed by this investigation team, Pierce Coleman, indicates that the town changed traditional process or lowered its standards in the process. Nothing, it says. I sent that stuff to you guys. You saw it. So I'm going to continue with this. The town offered interviews to 2 separate consecutive timeframes. That right there is a change. Never done before. The first set of interviews requested were extended to 231 applicants, which resulted in a cutoff score of 87. The town contemplated expanding the initial set of interviews to include an additional 28 applicants, to ensure an interview pool that depicted the diversity makeup of the town. They just told us right there. They just told us in their own report that they actually did do some unfair hiring practices. On the very next page of this same report he keeps referring to. They say it. Says, however, ultimately the town decided to expand the applicant pool. I'm going to tell you why they did that. The local vice president of Local 2260 Gilbert Chapter went to Bob Badgett, the same guy that told me, I'll be done real quick, the same guy that told me, asked me the question, am I following all statutes, ordinances, policies, procedures, guidelines? He went to him, and he said there's nothing he can do. He went to Jim Jobush, who led from the rear, nothing he could do. Went to Leah Reinheimer, said nothing we can do. Went to Patrick. Oh, now we got to interview 600 people because he no longer had plausible deniability. I sent this information to you guys. I am not lying. I'm bringing the truth. And something has to get done. This leadership needs to go. It needs to go. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Dawn and Crystal, are you sitting next to Dawn?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
She has donated her time.
She's kind like that. Good evening, Madam Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, and esteemed council members. My name is Don Edwards, and I retired from your fire department as a captain after I was retaliated against for filing a complaint against my supervisor, Aaron Barton. A couple things to keep in mind. Aaron Barton, when he was a captain, was being investigated for time card fraud. Allegedly, he lied during that investigation. Might be something you might want to revisit, especially ask him who performed his wedding ceremony. But tonight I'm going to tell you about the incident that I believe was the start to the treatment that led me to file my complaint. On April 27th, 2021, I walked into Fire Station 253 to work some overtime on the ladder. That was going to be some of the over 800 hours of overtime I would work that year to keep our trucks on the road. It's important to understand that that day I was in a firefighter spot. I was not acting as a captain, I was sitting backwards as a firefighter. I worked over 400 hours of firefighter overtime that year, again, to keep fire trucks on the road. As I walked into that fire station and sat down at that kitchen table, I was immediately set upon and verbally attacked by the captain on duty and his firefighter. That captain is allegedly, at least according to the giant sticker on the back of his truck and the things that he was screaming at me that day, is a member of the 3 Percenters. I don't know if you guys know who those guys are, but they're classified as an anti-government, extreme right-wing, white nationalist militia. I was attacked by this guy. After that incident, Beat C. Barton came by on my normal shift to talk about what happened. He proceeded to tell me that even those 2 guys corroborated everything I said, he, quote, needed to talk to me about my role in what occurred. He told me that I should, quote, expect for those things to happen because I am the department liberal. Now, I don't know if BC Barton has the same beliefs as that captain, or if it was just because BC Barton happens to employ that captain's wife at his off-duty private business, but that's the kind of stuff that goes on in the fire department. As I continue to shed light on the type of people that are in positions of power in the fire department, you'll begin to see a pattern emerge. If you are part of the cadre, yeah, they were cool enough to give themselves a nickname. You could say and do what you like with impunity. The cadre is the clique of men and women who believe, as BC Barton told me, quote, training is the mission of the fire department. Both BC Barton and that captain who attacked me are members of the cadre. You should know that when our regional partners heard about what this training cadre was pushing, vis-a-vis firefighter safety and how we conduct searches, that group known as the East Valley ROC, the Regional Occupational Training Consortium, told us, either you guys stop that or you're not going to be part of this consortium anymore. You guys are doing things that go against the grain of what we're supposed to be doing in the fire service. This is just one example, albeit a pretty glaring one, of how there are certain sets of rules or lack thereof for certain people in this fire department, and there's rules for the rest of us. These are the types of things that led me to file my complaint. And since I was never contacted by HR to expand on the issue, I'm forced to put it out here in public. I actually tried to talk to the fire chief, the town manager, and the assistant town manager, but I got blown off by all three. At the next meeting, I plan to talk some more about the cadre. Just a hint, it involves some more unethical, if not outright illegal conduct. Has to do with our latest hose purchases. Thank you for your time. I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you, Don. Mayor, that concludes communications from citizens.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. We will move on to future meetings. Anything that anyone would like to place on a future agenda? Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. Almost forgot. I made it through the whole agenda with all the changes. Chief Solberg would like to make a statement.
Thank you, Mayor. I know new set of rules tonight, so appreciate that. Mayor and Council, Mike Solberg, Chief of Police with Gilbert Police Department. I'd like to start out by thanking our council and our community for their continued engagement in addressing teen violence in the East Valley. As we have stated in the past, meaningful and long-term solutions can only occur if we all continue to work together. Last Thursday, representatives of DPS, Chandler PD, Mesa PD, Queen Creek PD, and Pinal County Sheriff's Office convened here in Gilbert for a joint press conference announcing the results of our extensive investigation into whether or not the Gilbert Goons are officially classified as a gang. As you already know, this collaborative investigation did yield information confirming the Gilbert Goons are officially designated as a gang and further clarified that within the overall gang designation, they are considered a hybrid gang. Specifying them as a hybrid gang merely further describes the way the gang was formed and operates as compared to a traditional gang. Let me reassure you that in the state of Arizona, if gang charges are presented, there is no distinction between a hybrid gang and a traditional gang. Now that this gang designation has been made, the county attorney's office, county attorneys have the ability to use this information in prosecution and/or sentencing phase of upcoming group teen violence cases. What is important for the council and for our community to know tonight is this. Although the investigation into the Gilbert Goons, which qualified them as a gang, has concluded, we remain unwavering in our commitment to investigating any acts of violence within Gilbert, including any acts of group teen violence. One more equally important takeaway, we will not let up on our efforts to partner with our council and our community members to collaborate on ways we can better serve our youth. Thank you again to everyone who is here tonight and who have remained engaged in this process. and provided valuable contributions to ensuring Gilbert remains the community that we all know and love. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it. Moving on to future meetings. Anything anyone would like to add? Seeing none, moving on to communications report from the town manager. He's fancy with his slides now.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Just two things to report for you tonight. If we can go to the first slide. Gilbert was just recognized as, suspense is building, as the fourth healthiest employer in the Phoenix region. And of particular note, we moved up into the largest employer category this year, which is a much more competitive category. So very proud of Erica Brown in our HR team that heads up our wellness efforts, as well as the entire wellness team. It was great work. Next, Jeff Lee, who's a member of our Water Resources Department, won the 2024 Outstanding Sustainability Award presented by the Arizona Water Association. I think Jeff is familiar to most of us and probably a lot of people in our community. He does great work for us, and we appreciate all their efforts to help us conserve water, especially in these times of drought. That's all I have tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Two great awards. Thanks for sharing those. Report from the Council on Current Events. Councilmember Torgerson.
All right, as required by Dan Henderson. At the April 16th Town Council study session, staff presented an update to council on the Northwest revitalization effort and requested direction on the boundary for the Northwest redevelopment area based off public feedback and research completed to date. Town Council provided the direction to pursue the Lindsay boundary, which is generally Arizona Avenue to the west, Baseline Road to the north, Lindsay to the east, and Ray Road to the south. The boundary adoption for the Northwest redevelopment area is planned to go to council in June, and additional information for the Northwest redevelopment, that's becoming a lot to say on that, Northwest revitalization effort, as well as a recording of the study session and feedback form, can be found on the webpage at gilbertaz.gov/NW-Gilbert. Also, two new public art pieces were unveiled in the Heritage District. The artworks are part of an ongoing effort to enhance and beautify downtown Gilbert's corridors and pathways where there is heavy pedestrian traffic and visitation. The first installation is located at the Ash Street parking garage and features a vinyl wrap on the north door facing the Power Line Trail. The 84-inch tall art piece titled Gilbert Deconstructed is from nationally recognized artist Liz Taylor. Not the same Liz Taylor that my dad had a crush on. The second installation is located at Hernway Parking Garage, also on the north door facing the Power Line Trail. Titled Illuminating the Past of Our Native American First Settlers, this vinyl wrap was created by artist Rosa Cruz and is sized at 94 inches of height. And that is what I have.
Councilmember Bongiovanni.
Thank you, Mayor. Here are a few parks and recreation happenings. Movies in the park. Join us on Friday, May 10th at 6:30 at Gilbert Regional Park to watch Super Mario Brothers. Space will be available on a first-come, first-served basis, so you better get there early for this fun family event, and it's free to attend. Major League Baseball pitch, hit, and run. Join us on Thursday, May 16th at Cactus Yards from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. to join the MLB pitch, hit, and run. It is for youth aged 7 to 14 years old, and it's free to participate. The event gives boys and girls an opportunity to showcase their baseball and softball skills, with the possibility of earning a chance to attend and compete for the championship during the 2024 MLB World Series. Register online today. And on a personal note, I did this 45 years ago. I could pitch, I could hit, but I couldn't run for the life of me. And that's your happenings for Parks and Rec.
Councilmember Kaprowski.
I wanted to give an update on the Gilbert Symphony Orchestra concert that was held last Saturday. We had over 200 people attend, and they had a wonderful performance that was centered around the theme of the Olympics, which are in Paris coming up. Coming up in our schedule, On May 18th, Saturday morning, May 18th, we are going to have our first annual Gilbert Community Bike Ride. And that will start at Hearn Way in downtown Gilbert, and we'll bike about 2 miles to Freestone Rec Center. I hear we're going to have some smoothies there available for everyone that participates, and then we're going to ride back to the Heritage District, and the people can go to lunch or whatnot. So I'm excited about that event. We are going to be capping the registration, but I think we have good response so far. And yeah, that's it.
Amazing. Anything else? Councilmember Torgerson, you still have your mic on, or you have something to add?
Other than that cute little kid wearing the Mario Brothers costume
That
earlier.
was tonight.
Tied that in. Other than that, no, sorry.
That was cute. Anything else, Council? Councilmember Buckley?
No, I do not have anything tonight. I just thought I'd let you know that. I'm the only one that has nothing, but tonight I have no tourism talks.
Thank you. Anything, Vice Mayor? I'll just add that we had a competition a few weeks ago that I happened to be a judge for, which was the Civics Bee that the Gilbert Chamber of Commerce held over in Mesa, and they went, our Gilbert Chamber students went to the state competition, and one of the Gilbert students won the state competition and will be headed to the national competition. So very big congratulations on that. And otherwise, I will say thank you for a very long night. I know we've all been here since 3 o'clock sitting in these seats. I will cut it short and ask for, I need to move to, I need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make
a motion to adjourn.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Motion, meeting adjourned. Thank you.